Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the honorees for the 2021 Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. Well, please be seated, and welcome to a summertime version of what has been for more than 60 years a traditional February afternoon of sports celebration with a distinct Panhandle flavor. Welcome to a gathering where the best of today and the best of yesterday are honored among their family, friends, and even rivals. Welcome to an idea that has stood the sometimes harsh test of time. Welcome to the 63rd Annual Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame ceremonies, or it's known as this year the West Texas A&M Athletic Banquet. I mean, goodness, Buffs, wow. You know, this is normally held the second Sunday of February, 1 week after the Super Bowl, but if you will recall, there was this thing called the COVID pandemic that we were in the grips of late in 2020, when the decision was made to push this date back to make something like this possible. And on February the 14th, when this was originally scheduled, it was 8 degrees below zero. 4 months later, I can tell you it is not 8 degrees below zero, especially in here right now. You know, 63 years, 6+ decades, that's a long time. For the 8th year, Kids Incorporated has been the leading and really perfect sponsor for the Hall. And if 63 years sounds like a long time, and it is, Kids Inc. has been around 14 years longer than that, 77 and counting. So, for the 63rd time, folks just like you have gathered to reflect and honor the local greats and those who have earned induction into this shrine that will total by the end of this afternoon to 192. And will honor the current crop of athletes and coaches who add to the rich tradition of sports in the Panhandle. You know, the first inductee, number 1, was Joe Fortenberry, 1959, a 6'8" country kid from Happy. He was known as the father of the dunk by the New York Times. He was captain of the first Olympic basketball team in 1936 that won a gold medal. And fast forward 63 years later, we will induct number 188, 189, 190, 191, and 192 into the Hall of Fame. And that's pretty unique for this little part of Texas. You know, there aren't many regions that have something like this, or certainly something for this long. I've talked to those from outside the area who have been to these, and they all kind of say the same thing. Do you know how nice this is? And I wish we had something like this too. Well, there is one, because Put Powell, a longtime Globe News sports columnist, and advertising executive John Heatland, they put their energies and ideas together in the late 1950s, enlisted the sponsorship of the YMCA, and built something a little special, a lasting tribute to sports and the men and women who play them in the Panhandle. And after their deaths, the baton was passed on and picked up by Garrett Von Netzer, Warren Hassey, David Jones, among others. When the YMCA closed here, Kids Incorporated enthusiastically stepped in. So more than 60 years later, it's still going strong. It's going strong because the Hall of Fame is not so much about plaques and pictures on a wall, although they're enshrined at the Kids Incorporated offices, and it's very nice. But the Hall of Fame is going strong because it's about people. It's about athletes and coaches. Many of them have the same dreams and goals, and when their time is done, others take the stage with those same dreams and goals, year after year, decade after decade. Many of you in the audience are their support system. Those on stage will be the first to say that they are, in so many words, a tree with a deep root system that extends to coaches, parents, wives, husbands, older brother, sister, friends, certainly to teammates. Many of you who have played a big role in their lives are here today. Nice clothes on a summer Sunday. That's right, we all have to sacrifice in some ways. And many of you who have played a role in their success are in this audience, and in a way, their award is your award. Before we move along with the program, there are always former members of the Hall of Fame who come back each year. I think mainly to show off their hip replacement surgery, but hey, they're here. Would you please stand up if you are a Hall of Fame member and we could recognize you? I know there's some. And well, let's just go ahead and get this out of the way now. If you think you should be in the Hall of Fame, would you please stand up? All right. Good to know. Good to know. All right. Again, welcome to athletes, coaches, inductees, friends, and family. You'll be glad you gave up a portion of your Sunday afternoon to be here. Now, to provide a welcome from Kids Incorporated and to voice our invocation is the President and CEO of Kids Inc., the corporate sponsor of the Hall of Fame, Mr. Jimmy Lackey.
Thank you all for being here today. We've got the air on. I always give credit where credit is due, and my staff sets up for this event. They get here at 11 o'clock to do this, and it was like Corpus Christi in here when they got started. It was hot and it was humid, and they got the air on about 30 minutes ago, so hopefully it'll cool down in here. Restrooms are over here, snacks at the back if you need something. If you see two fishing poles from the back, that's Kim Killian and I hitting the speakers, telling them, let's go. We're going to try to respect your time here today and all those that are having to sit up here on the stage and keep this moving along today. So we'll keep our remarks brief. So while we celebrate today, if you don't mind, let's bow our heads and go to the Lord in prayer, please. Father in heaven, we are so grateful for this opportunity and the opportunity to come together and celebrate athleticism in the Panhandle. Coaches and athletes and families who have supported them and special achievement recipients today, Lord, we praise you and thank you for all the gifts that they've brought to this area. To our inductees, a gentleman from Groom, Texas, who went to TCU and became a part of their Hall of Honor and served 6 of our presidents as a United States Secret Service agent. As John Mark stated at our press conference yesterday, one of the best male basketball players to ever come out of the Panhandle of Texas. A lady who broke barriers for women back in the area from Pampa, Texas as well. Went to Texas Tech, became a stellar athlete, and has been a tremendous coach, and on top of that, she's just a nice lady. And a friend of ours who left this earth far too soon, who was a great teammate, tenacious player, a state and national champion in her own right. And then, without stating anything, those of us around here probably think the greatest high school basketball coach of ever. So we're here today to celebrate all of these tremendous people. We ask that you be with us during this time. Bless us, keep us, watch over us. These things I pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Jimmy. Now is a portion of the program where the present kind of paves the way for the past. This is a day of recognition, not just for the careers and the lives of our 5 inductees today, but for the current accomplishments by some who may one day themselves be in the Hall of Fame. It's the honoring of the coaches and athletes of the year now in 11 sports. The school year of 2020-2021 was, I won't say maybe, I'll say was, the strongest ever in the Panhandle. And that will hit you later when you see the number of state and national champions from the Panhandle. This area has always been fortunate to have some of the best coaching in the state, but that's not to diminish those who make it happen, the athletes. Those, in the words of Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver in football history, said, "Today I do what others won't, so tomorrow I can accomplish what others can't." You know, a year ago at this time, the sports world was shut down, as it had been since mid-March. And there are other things more important, I know that, but isn't it nice a year later to honor an entire spectrum of sports and the coaches and the athletes of the year? So, let's meet the athletes of the year for 2020-2021. In baseball, once February arrived, Coleman Janelle had long since picked up a glove and baseball and left football behind. As a quarterback in the fall, Coleman quarterbacked Bushland to a 9-3 record, which included throwing for 405 yards and 4 touchdowns against Lubbock Estacado. But in baseball, Coleman was the force behind the Falcons' undefeated regular season. Whether it was at the plate or on the mound, Coleman dominated the opposition. Bushland went 20-0 in the regular season. As a pitcher, he was good for almost half of those wins, 9 to be exact. He was 9-0 with an ERA of 1.96. In 55 innings, the District 1-3 MVP struck out nearly 2 an inning, 96 total while walking only 8. At the plate, Coleman hit .530 with 35 RBIs. He made things happen on the base pass, too, scoring 55 runs and stealing 25 bases, as Bushland finished with a 25-2 record. He signed just about 3 weeks ago to play with Frank Phillips College in Borger. The Hall of Fame Baseball Player of the Year from Bushland High School, Coleman Janelle. As I mentioned earlier, these ceremonies have been in February until this year. Because they were in February, that means recognizing coaches and athletes in several sports from the year previous because their sports were in progress that February. Well, the committee had already voted on basketball and wrestling shortly after the pandemic hit, and it kind of wiped out other sports. But now we have another basketball and wrestling season that, in a way, supplants the 2020 year. But the Hall of Fame committee didn't think it was fair not to recognize those 2 sports from that year as well. So we've added the 2020 season to 2021 in those 2 sports. So in basketball for 2020, if you go back 15 months, West Texas A&M was on the verge of something special. They were 32-1 and about to host a regional and seriously contend for a national title when the pandemic hit and kind of shut everything down. There were many reasons why they were ranked number 3 in the country, none greater than then-sophomore Quay Grant of Waxahachie. He was the LSC and the South Central Regional Player of the Year and on multiple All-American teams, and the reasons were obvious. He averaged 20.7 points a game, 7.5 rebounds. He was in double figures in 31 of 33 games and scored more than 20 points in 18 of those games. In particular, he wore out Angelo State. Twice he scored 32 points against the Rams, and Even though he's only 6'1", he had 11 and 15 rebounds to go along with that. He just didn't excel on the defensive end either. He was named the Lone Star Conference All-Defensive Team and was a Lone Star Conference Defensive Player of the Year 4 times. That was in 2020. In 2021, Quay's backcourt teammate, Joel Murray, they made a devastating combination the last 2 years for the Buffs when WT went 51-4 and helped lead the Buffs to the national title game in April. Joel averaged a career best 23.3 points per game, third highest in the history of WT. That went along with his 6.2 rebounds and 4.2 assists per game. Joel had a career high of 37 points against rival Lubbock Christian. And in the 3 games of the Elite Eight National Tournament, he had 67 points, including 31 in the quarterfinals. He was named first-team All-LSC and on the All-LSC defensive team. He was named a second-team All-American. You know, to deal with either Quay Grant or J.J. Murray is tough enough. And to deal with both, well, that's how you get to be 51-4 the last 2 years. To accept as their head coach, Tom Brown, for the Hall of Fame 2020 basketball player and 2021 co-basketball player of the year, both from West Texas A&M, Quay Grant and Joel Murray. Hey, Tom. Thank you for doing this. I know we appreciate it. Don't talk to Coach Brown about the transfer portal. He doesn't have a whole lot of good things to say about it. Also in basketball in 2021, you know, here's the thing about Ali Schulte of Nazareth and Lubbock Christian. You want her on your team because championships follow. At Nazareth, it was 3 state titles and twice the 1A state tournament MVP. At LCU, she was on a national championship team as a sophomore in 2019. Then came this past year when the 5'10" senior point guard led the Lady Chaps to an undefeated season and another NCAA Division II national championship. In earning first-team All-American and Lone Star Conference honors, Ali averaged a team-high 15.1 points per game this past year. It was 7th nationally in field goal percentage at 60%, which was remarkable for a guard. Ali led LCU with 83 assists and 66 steals. In the NCAA Elite Eight tournament, she had a season-high 24 points and a come-from-behind 63-61 win over Central Missouri in the semifinals. Then had a team-high 18 points and a 69-59 win over Drury in the title game. She was named Most Outstanding Player in the national tournament, and her 172 career points in the NCAA tournament are second all-time at LCU. Ali had a family emergency over the weekend and could not be here, but we will get a plaque to the co-basketball player of the year from Nazareth and Lubbock Christian, Ali Schulte. In cross country, Kyla Kane of Wellington seems to have a standing date with the medal stand at the state cross country meet. As a freshman in 2018, she won the Class 2A state title. As a sophomore in 2019, she was state runner-up. And this past November, she reverted back to her freshman form. She recaptured the 2A title in the 2-mile race at Old Settlers Park in Round Rock in 12:09:49, the only Panhandle runner to win an individual title. With her and Allison Hedrick of Lindsay and Allison Vaughn of Christoval stride for stride at the 1-mile mark, Kyla broke away over the second half of the race to win by a comfortable 14 seconds. The previous week, Kyla had won her 3rd regional championship in a row by 19 seconds. Continuing that momentum in the spring, Kyla won the 2A state title in the 1600 in 5:14 and took silver in the 800 in 2:17:9. She will seek her 3rd gold medal this fall. Kyla also had an issue this weekend that prevented her from coming, and we will make sure that she gets her plaque too. The Hall of Fame cross-country athlete of the year from Wellington High School, Kyla Kane. In football, if Hayes Huffstetler of Canadian was standing on the sidelines, it was only because it was the second half of yet another Wildcat blowout. And because he may have been on the sidelines in the second half, it's because he never left the field in the first half. Translation, the Canadian senior was not only a jack of all trades, but a master of them as well, in helping lead the Wildcats to a 15-1 record in the Class 3A Division II state championship. It was Canadians' fifth state title, all of them since 2007. Do you want him to run the football? Well, he did. He gained 1,962 yards on 194 carries, including a 99-yard run. Do you want him to catch the football? He did, catching 30 passes for 409 yards. He averaged 10.5 yards every time he touched the football. Do you want him to throw the football? He did, although that one got intercepted, so never mind. Do you want him to score touchdowns? He did, 35 times, leading the Wildcats with 210 points. Well, how about defense? Well, as a linebacker, 112 tackles, 3 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble return for a touchdown. You want the epitome of a small-town football player who is asked to play on both sides of the line of scrimmage and play it well on a state championship team. Well, that's Hayes Huffstetler. Accepting is his father, Heath, for the Hall of Fame Football Player of the Year from Canadian High School, Hayes Huffstetler. Congratulations. Thank you. Great year for him. In golf, it's not so much a sibling rivalry between Shaylee Goad and her younger brother Gatlin as it is just a lot of golf talent in one family. 6 and 5 years ago, Shaylee won the Class 1A state title for Fort Elliott, and now Gatlin comes along to do the same. In April, he won the regional 1-1A title at Reese Air Force Base course in Lubbock with rounds of 74 and 76 for a 2-day total of 150. Then in May, at the Lighthouse Country Club in Kingsland, he won the 1A state championship rather comfortably. He pretty much won it on the first day with a 72 on a day when 69 of the 70 golfers shot 80 or over, and most of them were way over. He had a 7-shot lead over Seth Bearden of Kroll, and he kept that margin with a second day's 75 for a 2-day total of 147 to win by 6 strokes. Third place was 13 shots behind as Gatlin pretty much was by himself. He's the only Panhandle golfer to win a state crown. The Hall of Fame Golfer of the Year from Fort Elliott High School, Gatlin Goad. Yep. Congratulations. Great year. In soccer, in his first 2 years at Palo Duro, Jaime Carrillo has set the bar extremely high. Both as a freshman in 2020 and a sophomore this past spring, Jaime was named the District 3-5A MVP and was also first-team All-State, in leading the Dons to a 22-1 record and a berth in the regional semifinals. His goal with 39 seconds left in the regional quarterfinals against El Paso Bowie broke a 3-3 tie and pushed the Dons to their furthest advancement in school history. Jaime finished the season with 39 goals and 15 assists, and his total of 54 ranked in the top 5 in the state. In 2 years, Jaime has 83 goals and 20 assists. That sounds like a lot. I knew he was talented coming in as a freshman, said his coach, Irvin Johnson, and he only continued to mature and understand his role with the team to create more space and more opportunities for him. And accepting is his coach, Irvin Johnson, for the Hall of Fame Soccer Player of the Year from Palo Duro High School, Jaime Carrillo. Congratulations, Coach. You're a great player. In softball, let's start with the fact that Shannon McBroom 10 days ago was named the NCAA Division II National Player of the Year. You could end it there too, but we won't. One of only 2 seniors on a team with 17 freshmen and sophomores, Shannon was the unquestioned leader of the 2021 national champions. She played a premium defensive position of catcher, where she was also Catcher of the Year nationally. So it stands to reason Shannon was also the Lone Star Conference and South Central Region Player of the Year. The numbers obviously would bear this out. She led the nation in stolen bases with 35. She was second in the country in hits with 80, behind teammate Ruby Salzman, by the way. Shannon hit .429 with 13 doubles, 8 triples, 7 home runs, and 37 RBIs. She struck out only 12 times, had an on-base percentage of .483. Shannon is from Soxie, which is about 25 miles northeast of Dallas, and she leads as a 2-time All-American who started 212 games for WT. The Hall of Fame Softball Player of the Year from West Texas A&M, Shannon McBroom. Great season, Shannon. Great season. That's awesome. Appreciate you doing it. In tennis, Bryce Ware of Canyon left no doubt as to who was the best singles player in Class 4A. He mowed through 3 matches at the state tournament, much like he had done the entire fall and spring season. Last month in San Antonio at the state tournament, he breezed through the quarterfinals and semifinals, winning 24 of 28 games to face Siddhartha Moiva of North High Prep in Irving in the finals. Bryce broke serve late in the first set to win 7-5, and then continued that momentum in the second set to close it out 7-5, 6-1. It was Canyon's first singles state champion in 28 years. Bryce went 28-3 in the spring. The 3 losses were to players in higher classes, and he came back to defeat those same 3 opponents later in the spring. And in team tennis last fall, he was unbeaten, going 24-0. So combined as a senior, Bryce was 52-3. In 2019, the last time the UIL contested spring tennis, Bryce teamed with Asher Melton to win the 4A doubles. So this 2-time state champion, top 10 academically in his class, has earned an academic scholarship and will play tennis at Kansas Wesleyan. The Hall of Fame Tennis Player of the Year from Canyon High School, Bryce Ware. Great year, man. Thank you. Congratulations. Appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you. In track, the sport of track is about versatility. It's about sprinters, long-distance runners, hurdlers, jumpers, throwers, strength, and speed. West Texas A&M showed how true that was on the national stage for the co-athletes of the year. Benjamin Azamati. I mean, the name just sounds fast. I think I'll get in my turbocharged Azamati and see what it can do down the open road. Well, this Azamati, he's turbocharged too. Simply, the sophomore from Ghana is the greatest sprinter in Division II history. He set all-time records in both the 100 and 200. He ran a record 9.97 in the 100 meters at the Texas Relays in April. He won the 100 in the national meet in Allendale, Michigan at the end of May in 10.02, winning by 35 hundredths of a second, which is a huge margin in a meet like this. Benjamin has the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 all-time fastest times in the 100 in Division II. He would have won the Division I 100 meters that was contested last weekend. He also had an unforgettable 200 at the Lone Star Conference meet. And I don't know which was harder to believe, that his 20.13 in the 200 broke the Division II record that was 29 years old, or the fact that the meet was in Canyon at WT and it was wind legal. It was a rare, calm afternoon in the Panhandle for that run. Benjamin went on to win the 200 at the national meet in 20.23, and this again by more than a half second, which is a huge margin. Almost overlooked, he anchored the Buffs 400 relay to second place in a school record time of 39:92. Probably goes without saying that he is the Division II track athlete of the year. He will represent Ghana at the Tokyo Olympics later this summer. Accepting is the cross-country coach and assistant track coach, Jake Krolik, for the co-track athlete of the year from West Texas A&M, Benjamin Azamati. Zeta Swoops won her 3rd and 4th national titles in her great career at WT, winning both the shot put and discus at the national meet in Allendale, Michigan. In the discus, she won with a throw of 175 feet 6 inches, winning by 4.5 feet. Her specialty, though, is a shot put. She already had the national title again sewn up, and then she went out with a flourish. On her last attempt, she threw the shot 58 feet, 8.5 inches, breaking the 18-year-old mark in the event, and she won the event by a ridiculous 7.5 feet. She was an, oh, by the way, 6th in the hammer. Top 6 qualify as All-Americans, so Zeta was an All-American in 3 events. And she was the Division II Field Athlete of the Year. The senior from Whitewright, which is 60 miles north of Dallas, has qualified for the U.S. Olympic trials later this summer in the shot. She's the Hall of Fame co-track athlete of the year from West Texas A&M, Zeta Swoops. I'm not sure if Zeta's here. I bet you didn't know Zeta looked like that, did you? She was going to be here, and I think something at the very last minute came up. In volleyball, as a left-handed outside hitter, Kenley Rudder of Bushland led the Lady Falcons to the 3A state championship and took about every accolade possible in doing so. She completed the season with 439 kills, 178 digs, 52 aces, 35 blocks. What does that mean? Well, it means this. She was the District 1 3A MVP. She was the 3A state tournament MVP. She was first-team All-State on the Texas Girls Coaches Association team and the Texas Sports Writers Association team, where she was also the 3A Player of the Year. And she was named by Press Pass Sports as the Panhandle's Volleyball Player of the Year. I don't think there's anything left. Said her coach, Jason Culpepper. Kenley's one of the best players I've ever coached. Being left-handed, she brings a different spin, a different speed. She can find a different gear when she wants. Her last 3 games were the best she's ever played for us. She left it all on the floor. Headed to West Texas A&M to play, she's the Hall of Fame Volleyball Player of the Year from Bushland High School, Kenley Rudder. Congratulations, Kenley. That's a great year. Wrestling, like basketball, was the other sport where the 2020 season was able to conclude before the pandemic. Because of the later ceremonies this year, that means that 2 wrestling seasons from 20 and 21 have elapsed. Because of a previous vote, again, the committee didn't think it was fair not to recognize those previously voted upon. So, in 2020, a year ago, there were co-wrestlers who were impressive cogs in the machine that is Randall Wrestling. Jaden Heaton finished the 2020 season last February, just before the pandemic, as the Class 5A 160-pound state champion. He finished with a 46-5 record. And in his 4 matches at the state tournament, he won by pin, a 5-3 decision, and then he pinned Hank Meyer of Burleson Centennial in the championship. That helped lead Randall at the time to its 2nd consecutive team state champion. The Hall of Fame co-wrestler from 2020 from Randall High School is Jaden Heaton. Great year, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You know, the Panhandle has always been strong in wrestling, even before it was a UIL sport. And it has had its share of dominant wrestlers going back, well, even before, but going back to at least Olympic gold medalist Brandon Slay. And certainly Branson Britton of Randall is right up there. He is the co-wrestler for 2020 and the outright winner in 2021. Both seasons, he was the Class 5A state champion, first at 170 pounds and then at 182 pounds. He was 47-4 as a junior in 2020, and like Jaden, who wrestled in the weight class before him, Branson dominated at the state tournament with a tough 3-0 decision in the semifinals, and then he pinned Max Hampton of Frisco Lebanon Trail in the finals. Well, that was just a warm-up for this past spring. Now wrestling at 182 pounds, hey, guys got to eat, okay? Branson was 29-0, and 4 teams forfeited to him. Of those 25 matches, he won them all by pin, including all 3 matches at the state tournament, including the state title match against Zeb Fulmer of Winsboro. Only 1 match all season went into the 2nd period. He was named, not surprisingly at all, the most outstanding wrestler at the state tournament. He is signed to wrestle at Northern Colorado in Greeley. The Hall of Fame co-wrestler in 2020 and the wrestler in 2021 from Randall High School, Branson Britton. Well, join me once again in recognizing the Hall of Fame Athletes of the Year for 2020-2021. The Hall of Fame Super Team Award annually goes to the top team of the year regardless of sports. And there were plenty to choose from in multiple sports this year, and I mean plenty. Following that award is the Dick Reisenhoover Award, which goes each year to a sports figure whose accomplishments reach beyond the Texas Panhandle, just as Dick Reisenhoover did when the local broadcaster became the Texas Rangers' first play-by-play radio man in 1972. Here to present those 2 awards is Hall of Fame committee member Steve West. Steve?
Thank you, John Mark. As John Mark said, this year alone there were 14 state championship teams in the Texas Panhandle, 1 national championship team. So how do we get together as a committee and decide which one of these teams to honor as the C.L. Donovan Jr. Super Team of the Year? I think you'd agree this team has to be dominant. This team has to be record-breaking, record-setting, and I think you'll agree that the Randall High School wrestling team met all of those categories this year. This spring, the Randall wrestling team won their 3rd consecutive 5A state championship. Keep in mind, in wrestling, the 5A division includes 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A. It's like 80% of the schools in the state of Texas. And so they've won the 5A state championship 3 years in a row. The first 5A state team to win the title in 3 consecutive years. They amassed 196.5 points at the state meet. That's 115 points more than the second place team. That's 40 points more than the second and third place team's point total combined. Randall took 10 wrestlers to the state meet this year. Of those 10 wrestlers, they won a total of 4 gold medals, 2 silver medals, 1 bronze medal, 1 fourth place finish, and 1 fifth place finish. So they were talented and they were deep. 8 of this year's senior wrestlers have signed to wrestle in college. That makes 16 in the last 2 years, 20 in the last 3 years. So you can see they've been deep and talented for quite a while. This is the 6th overall state title for the Randall High School boys program since 2008. As a side note, the Randall High School girls wrestling team won the state championship this year as well. And that's the first time in UIL history that one school has produced a state champion in both boys and girls division. For winning the state championship in such a dominant fashion, for completing the first three-peat in 5A state history, please help us recognize the Randall High School boys wrestling team and Coach David Carino as the 2021 Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame Super Team of the Year. You guys stand up real quick. There's the team right there. I know a lot of you have been to wrestling meets, but I had the pleasure of going and attending the entire finals of the district meet, and that is just a different environment. It is incredible. Just that man-on-man, no place to hide, no excuses, nobody can bail you out, and it is something to watch. If you've never been to one, you need to go. As John Mark said, the Dick Reisenhoover Award is annually given to a local athlete or sports personality whose accomplishments extend beyond the Texas Panhandle. And he mentioned Dick Reisenhoover and his great career. You can read it there in your program. Brad Wick is a graduate of San Jacinto Christian Academy in Amarillo and was drafted by the New York Mets in 2014. The 6'8" reliever, I'm 6'5", so 6'8" reliever has a strong fastball and a nasty curve. You need to go watch him on the internet sometime, just making people bail out of the box and the ball breaks into the mitt. Being 6'8", it seems like the ball is halfway to the plate when it comes out of his hand. And hitters just hate that kind of thing. Relief pitchers lead a different, really stressful life. They have to be ready on a moment's notice to run onto the field from the bullpen and enter a game where his team is ahead by 1 run, with 1 out, 2 men on base. It's bottom of the 7th or 8th inning, in front of 30,000 to 35,000 people and on national television. And all you got to do is get 1 or 2 outs and get your team out of a jam. Just run in just stone cold like that. In his career with the New York Mets, San Diego Padres, and now the Chicago Cubs, Brad has done this well. In his career, he's fought through torn hamstrings, torn meniscus in his knee, the infamous Tommy John surgery on his throwing elbow, and cancer. Brad's father told me that he and his wife moved 14 times in 1 year as he worked through all the trials and tribulations of injuries, roster moves, and everything that goes on at the Major League Baseball environment. In this current young season, Brad has appeared in 8 games for the Cubs. He's allowed 6 hits, 3 walks, has struck out 9, and has an ERA of 0. I don't know what more you could ask for a guy. He's one of very few from the Amarillo area to ever pitch in the major leagues. This year's Dick Reisenhoover Award winner, representing San Jacinto Christian Academy, Amarillo, and the Chicago Cubs, is Brad Wick. And Brad's father, Mike, will be accepting this award on his behalf. Thank you.
Now we move on to a group that has sat here patiently looking at all these athletes of the year, marveling to themselves how well they must listen, how well they must take instruction, just how wonderful, coachable they must be. And this is a group our athletes are thinking, yeah, it's people like us that sure make you look good. It's the coaches of the year for 2020, 2021. It's been quite a year at Amarillo High. Boys basketball to the state semifinals. Two track teams won 2 regional championships. Softball team to the regional finals. And now the latest, baseball. Randon Johnson guided Amarillo High to the 5A state semifinals, which was just this past Thursday in Round Rock. The second time in 5 years for the Sandies to get that far, but just the third time in school history for the Sandies to advance to the Final Four of the state tournament. Amarillo High set a school record with 33 wins in a 33-10 season. They finished the season by winning 24 of their last 29 games. The Sandies were led by center fielder Davian Berry, the 3-5A MVP, pitcher Tristan Curlis, the 3-5A pitcher of the year, and catchers Caden Phillips and shortstop Jake Maynard, both headed to Division I programs at Dallas Baptist and TCU. Coach Johnson had Amarillo High at their best in the playoffs. To get to the state tournament, they had to win 6 playoff series. They dropped just 3 games in those series, all by 1 run, and won their 10 games by an average of more than 7 runs. The head coach of possibly the best season in school history, the Hall of Fame Baseball Coach of the Year from Amarillo High, Randon Johnson. In basketball, going back to the 2020 season, 2 high school teams won state championships. Shockingly, Nazareth added to its state record of 24 state championships with the 1A title in San Antonio. Coach Eric Schilling's Swiftettes were 31-8, with all 8 losses to teams from higher classifications, including 2 from 4A and 2 from 5A. After a couple of tight games in the playoffs, Nazareth won both of its state tournament games by double digits, including 44-31 over Lipan. Addie Dyer and Emma Kleeman led a balanced offense all season. The Hall of Fame Co-Basketball Coach of the Year from 2020 from Nazareth High School is Eric Schilling. He could not be here today, but we will get the plaque to him. The other state champion from 2020, the Groover Lady Greyhounds, coached by Shannon Fisher. They had one of the highest win totals in Panhandle history when they finished with a 38-2 mark in the Class 2A state championship. 11 of those wins came against teams from higher classifications. Groover's strength was its balance. Andy Salgado, sophomore Bailey Maupin, Maddie McCloy, state tournament MVP Cameron Arms. It's hard to stop them all. After avenging one of 2 losses by beating Panhandle in the regional finals, Groover advanced to the state tournament, topping Grapeland 59-49, and then holding off Munster in a tight one, 42-39, to claim the Class 2A state title by winning 38 of 40 games. The Hall of Fame Co-Basketball Coach of the Year from 2020, who has since become the head coach, I believe, at Childress, that's Shannon Fisher. Now to basketball in 2021. The apple does not fall far from the tree, at least not in Canyon. That a Lombard won a state championship at Canyon, not exactly breaking news, but that it was Tate Lombard and not his dad Joe, which you've probably heard of, well, that's at least new. Different Lombard, same results. In his first year as head coach of the Lady Eagles, Tate guided Canyon to a 31-1 record in the Class 4A state championship. Led by guard Chloe Callahan and post Kennedy Winfrey, Canyon won 24 games in the regular season by an average of 36 points. Just 3 games were less than double figures. But they could also win close games, too, like their last 3. A 42-37 win over Bridgeport in the regional finals. A 42-40 win over Dallas Pinkston in the semifinals. And they trailed in the championship unbeaten Hardin-Jefferson 52-48 with 1:50 left. But the Lady Eagles scored the next 8 points in dramatic fashion and went on to a 56-55 victory. Counting his 8 years at Wall High School near San Angelo, the state title was Tate's 3rd in his relatively young career. He now owns a record of 267-49. He's just getting started. The Hall of Fame Tri-Coach of the Year in basketball from Canyon High School, Tate Lombard. You know, Joe, he just might beat all of your records before it's all said and done. Is that okay with you? Oh, okay. All right. Did you know that Tate has the all-time best winning percentage among Canyon girls basketball coaches? Did you know that? He says go back and figure it out. Well, you know, I couldn't help but notice that it took you 7 years at Canyon to win your first state championship, and your son did it in his first year. How about that? Yeah. Hey, we're just keeping it real here at the Hall of Fame. Okay, let's move on. Boston Hudson is another young coach who did some big things in 2021. As the head coach of the Clarendon Broncos, he guided the school to their first state championship when the Broncos won the Class 2A state title in March. Boston guided a young team where only 2 of the 13 are seniors to a 25-4 record, and it seems to be the case with every champion, a dramatic win in the finals. Clarendon met one-loss Grapeland in the title game and trailed 60-59 with 35 seconds left. But LaMarcus Penninger's free throw with 24 seconds left tied the score at 60. And on the ensuing possession, Penninger's steal and coast-to-coast layup with 11 seconds left gave Clarendon a 62-60 lead. Another turnover turned into 2 free throws with 4 seconds left that sealed a 64-60 win. Clarendon won its last 19 games. Boston's dad, Johnny, was a coach for 28 years, so he's from a coaching family. Boston is a native of Canadian. He's only 25, graduating from WT in 2018. It's only his 2nd year as a head coach. They learn fast these days. The Hall of Fame Basketball Coach of the Year. From Clarendon High School, Boston Hudson. Well, let the record show that it is 609 miles from Texline to San Antonio. For the record, only 588 miles from Texline to Casper, Wyoming. Point being, Texline had no intention of driving 1,200 miles round trip to San Antonio and coming back empty-handed. And they didn't. Like Clarendon, they were 25-4. Like Clarendon, they only had 2 seniors. Like Clarendon, they were state champions, winning the 1A title. Like Clarendon, they did it in dramatic fashion. Head coach Kobe Beckner, in his 5th year at Texline and 23rd year overall, called it a magical ride, and it was that. The Tornadoes were used to tight games, winning a pair of playoff games by 2 points to get to the state tournaments. So it was nothing unusual that they trailed Slidell 53-51 in the last 30 seconds. Then Will Luther, a 6-foot junior, hit a cold-blooded step-back three-pointer with 11 seconds remaining, and that made a winner and a state champion of Texline. It was Tech Line's second state title to go along with one won in 2015. For Coach Beckner, that was his 408th career win, and I doubt none bigger. The Hall of Fame Tri-Basketball Coach of the Year from Texline High School, Kobe Beckner. In cross country, Jake Krolik of West Texas A&M led the Buffs to their 8th consecutive Lone Star title, his 4th as head coach. WT successfully fought their way through a pandemic in the fall to win the conference crown comfortably by placing top 5 scoring runners among the first 15 runners at the Lone Star Conference meet. WT finished with 31 points, more than 40 points better than Oklahoma Christian. Innocent Merwin-Askaya was the newcomer of the year, one of 6 runners to earn all conference honors. Now, because the NCAA did not contest championships in the fall in Division II because of the pandemic, cross-country coaches held the Division II National Invitation, which is a collection of most of the top teams and runners in the country. WT was 3rd overall with 77 points, with Innocent 7th in the 10K and 31-18-17. Jake is one of those coaches who not only can say, do as I say, but do as I do. Jake is a former distance runner at Edinboro University and Adams State in Colorado. He has twice narrowly missed qualifying in the last 2 U.S. Olympic trials in the marathon, where the standard for the 26.2-mile race is 2 hours, 19 minutes. He missed the first one by 25 seconds. He missed the second one by 14 100ths of a second. But he's going to give it a shot again in 2024. The Hall of Fame cross-country Coach of the Year from West Texas A&M, Jake Krolik. In football, way back in 2019, Canyon began the season with a 6-0 record and then just a rash of injuries. Multiple injuries at crucial positions devastated the Eagles. They lost their last 5 and really hit the end of the season on a down note. But they also hit the reset button. It takes an experienced coach like Blake Bryant, the dean of coaches in the Panhandle, to know what buttons to push after a season like that. Blake's 21st season at Canyon was probably the best in school history. Certainly advancing to the 4A Division I semifinals matched the furthest advancement in school history with the team in 2006, which he also coached. Canyon finished with a 12-2 record, and not so much that they won, but how much they won by. The Eagles won their 12 games by nearly 33 points a game. They were led by quarterback Jay DeFore, running back Brody Cook, wide receiver Jack McKay, and linebacker Cam Reagan. Only eventual state champion Argyle ended their season 37-20 in the semifinals. Along the way, Blake got his 150th career win. It was certainly a season to remember in more ways than one. In early May, Coach Bryant announced his retirement after 21 years at Canyon, and that is the way to make an exit. The Hall of Fame Football Coach of the Year from Canyon High School, Blake Bryant. In golf, Ricky Guy's been coaching the sport of golf for a long time, coaching it well. In 2003, in his hometown of Memphis, he guided the Cyclones to the 1A state title. Did the same with the girls 4 years later in 2007. Pretty good basketball coach, too, most notably at Memphis and River Road. Rick came to Canyon High School in a retire-rehire mode to coach the Canyon golf team. Just last month, the Eagles were second in the 1-4A regional tournament with a two-day total of 609 to get them to the state tournament. Led by Peyton Mask, the Eagles were third at the 4A state tournament with a 27-hole total of 471. Argyle was the state champion, followed by Monahans. The bronze medal finished tied for the highest among any Panhandle area teams. You wouldn't know it, and that's probably a good thing. But Rick was the recipient of a heart transplant 9 years ago in 2012. And no question, he has made the best of a second chance of life. Even in his early 60s, he officiates basketball games and obviously continues to coach and play the sport he loves. The Hall of Fame Golf Coach of the Year from Canyon High School, Rick Guy. I know what you're thinking, and yes, he can drive a golf ball. Long way, long way. In soccer, Stacy McPherson has had some really good teams at Amarillo High. I don't think she's had a team quite like this one. It was probably the best girls soccer team, not just at Amarillo High, but ever in the Panhandle. Coach McPherson's Lady Sandys advanced to the 5A Regional Championship for the first time in school history. Amarillo High finished with a 17-2-2 record. Led by sophomore Lily Sobeys, 18 goals and 14 assists, the Lady Sandys outscored their 21 opponents by a combined total of 97-13, 12 of them by shutouts. Amarillo High outscored 4 playoff opponents 13-1 before ultimately falling to Grapevine 3-1, one game before the state tournament. Amarillo High, they're getting closer all the time, and they'll probably get there soon enough. The Hall of Fame Soccer Coach of the Year from Amarillo High, Stacy McPherson. Great job, Stacy. Great job. You're welcome. In softball, Scott Tankersley has been here before, but it's been as a wrestling coach at Caprock. He's moved schools and changed sports, but the winning continues to follow him. In his first full season as a softball coach at Bushland, the Lady Falcons rolled to a 34-1 record, and in the process set a UIL state record for most home runs in a season with 87. The record was 82, set by another Panhandle team, Canyon, a few years back. In an area playoff game against Idalou, Briley Adams tied the mark, and then her sister Jacy broke it just a bit later. Bushland outscored its opponents 529-100. 2 of their 4 losses were to Class 6A teams, Bushland's 3A, including a narrow loss to number 3 ranked Flower Mound. The Lady Falcons beat 7 upper-class teams, including Class 6A Carrollton Hebron, and they tied Allen. Allen is the largest high school in the state with over 6,000 enrollment. Bushland advanced to the 3A regional quarterfinals before losing in 3 games to Jacksboro. The Hall of Fame Softball Co-Coach of the Year from Bushland High School, Scott Tankersley. Great year, man. Congratulations. Congratulations. The WT softball team was picked 7th in the preseason, 7th in the Lone Star Conference. Maybe there's a reason for that. The Buffs were 14-9 in the 2020 in an abbreviated pandemic schedule, and then 17 of their 20 on the roster were either freshmen or sophomores. But they did have one of the top players in the country in Shannon McBroom. had a star pitcher in Kira Lair, did have some talent in those young players, and they did have Coach Michael Mook, who was in his second year and won a whole bunch of games in the NAIA level in North Dakota. It's kind of 3 seasons for WT. They started out 12-0, and then they went 10-10 over their next 20 games. And after losing a doubleheader to Oklahoma Christian on April the 11th, including being run-ruled in the first game, their season turned, and it turned permanently. Coach Mook said the focus was not the end result, just wanted to get better every game, individually and as a team. Well, 1 win became 2, 2 wins became 4, 4 wins became 8. It was just one of those magical rides that teams once in a great while climb on. WT won their last 10 games of the regular season. They won the Lone Star Conference tournament in Oklahoma City with a 10-0 run rule of Angelo State. Then on the Texas Commerce's own home field, they won the South Central region, defeating Commerce in the finals 4-0. So that brought on the College World Series in Denver. 3 wins, including 9-4 over number 1 ranked Augustana, had them in the championship series against Biola University. They lost the first game, big, 5-0. But they came back to win game 2, 7-4. They found themselves trailing 1-0 in the 6th inning just 2 weeks ago tomorrow, when freshman Gabriela Villaforte had one of the biggest moments in WT sports history, a grand slam in the next to last inning to propel the Lady Buffs to a 4-1 win and an unlikely national championship. It was a 43-12 record, winning 21 of their last 23 and standing atop the Division II softball world. Yeah, that's how you do it. Accepting, fittingly enough, is Shannon McBroom for the softball co-coach of the year from West Texas A&M, Michael Mook. Okay. Where were you? Were you on base?
I was on third base.
You were on third base. Yeah. Did you scream and holler? Shannon says she was on third base on that grand slam and screamed and hollered. So did a lot of people. In tennis, 8 years ago, Hereford coach Cody Crouch basically had to kind of restart a tennis program from scratch, and there's few things more challenging than that. In the fall of 2019, his team won the first district championship since the mid-90s and then advanced to the regional tournament before they were eliminated. Well, this past fall was even more of a breakthrough. Hereford won the Class 4A State Team Tennis Championship in College Station. Now, not only was it the school's first ever such title, but it was the first for a Panhandle tennis team since Tascosa in 1997, so nearly 25 years. Hereford's last 3 team matches were all tight battles. They turned the tables on Vernon, who beat them in the regional finals in 2019. This time they won the regional title over Vernon 10-8. They beat Kaufman in the state semifinals and then Bernie in the championship match, both of them by 10-8 scores. It takes poise and confidence instilled by a coach to win under pressure. This past spring in individual competition, Coach Crouch sent 4 players, 3 entries to the 4A state tournament, with Victoria Betson and Nikki Villanova winning the state title in mixed doubles. The Hall of Fame Tennis Coach of the Year for the 2nd year in a row, from Hereford High School, Cody Crouch. In track, the bigger the track meet, the better for Coach Corby Maurer and the Panhandle Pantherettes. What they might have not had in overall depth, they more than made up for that with quality, with speed that could not only dominate on the 2A level, but could match teams and individuals several classes higher. So a setting like the UIL State Meet in Austin last month was a perfect atmosphere for Panhandle. You know, while 65 medals were won at the state meet by area entrants, only Panhandle came away as a state team champion, and they did so rather easily in Class 2A. Coach Meyer's team finished with 74 points, which was 32 more than runner-up Haskell. Panhandle was led by Mackie Land, who anchored her team to a 2A record time of 3:56.09 in the 1600 relay. They won and then she won convincingly in the 400 in 56.01. They also took gold in the 400 relay in 48.42. Also got on the medal stand in the 800 relay with a third place finish in 1:44.12. That accounted for a bulk of their points as they won the state crown with ease. Said Coach Meyer, "We have a group of girls who work hard and never tell us no." The Hall of Fame Track Coach of the Year from Panhandle High School, Corby Maurer. In volleyball, in his first year at Bushland in 2019, Jason Culpepper and the Lady Falcons, well, they didn't end the season like they wanted, falling in the state 3A semifinals. This past November, they wrote an ending much more to their liking. They put the finishing touches on a dominant season by sweeping Goliad 25-21, 25-10, 25-10 to win the 3A state title. It was the school's 6th state championship. Bushland was 32-2, and in only a few matches were they really pushed. Led by, you saw earlier, Kenley Rudder, J.C. Adams, Haley Conklin, and Logan Culpepper, which is Jason's daughter. They rolled through the playoffs, dropping only one set out of 21. In fact, out of their 32 wins, 28 were sweeps. In his 2 years at Bushland, Jason's teams are 78-4. Counting his previous 5 years at Dalhart and 13 at Randall, where the Lady Raiders won the 2009 state title, he has an overall record of 669-164. The Hall of Fame Volleyball Coach of the Year from Bushland High School, Jason Culpepper. In wrestling, well, you heard Steve West talk earlier about David Carino and the Randall Wrestling Program, the super team presentation. Nothing has changed much in the last 20 minutes or so. So just to summarize, first time in UIL history to lead both boys and girls to state championships, this in Class 5A. The third consecutive boys state title, and they won with 196.5 points this year. That was so dominant, if you added up second place Burleson, Centennial, and Dumas, third place, they'd still be 36 points behind Randall. It was the 6th state title for Coach Carino since 2008. Hall of Fame Wrestling Coach of the Year from Randall High School, David Carino. Well, join with me again in recognizing the Coaches of the Year for 2021. You know, Special Achievement Awards were started a number of years ago to recognize athletes or teams who maybe didn't fit into these 11 sports or whose achievement within them merited special recognition. Thus the name, Special Achievement. To present them is Kids Inc. CEO and President Jimmy Lackey. Jimmy?
Each year, the Hall of Fame likes to honor individuals and teams that have excelled in their area of excellence and expertise with what we call Special Achievement Awards. In the past, these awards have been given to Olympic champions, Olympic wrestlers, legendary coaches, championship teams, and many others. And this year, we're excited to present 5 additional Special Achievement Awards. The 2021 season was a historic one for Tom Brown and the West Texas A&M men's basketball program. After an exciting regular season and a run in the playoffs, the Buffs made an appearance in the NCAA Division II National Championship for the first time in the program's history. Overall, they ended the season with a record of 19-3. Some highlights from the season include Quay Grant's career record 40 points scored against Lubbock Christian in the South Central Regional Final. And anybody that saw it will never forget Zach Toussaint's game-winning shot in the last seconds of the Final Four game that sent us to the championship matchup. Here to accept this 2021 Special Achievement Award is the head men's basketball coach and coach of West Texas A&M University Buffaloes, Coach Tom Brown. Our next Special Achievement Award goes to an individual with very strong ties to the Hereford and local community. Tom Simons recently completed his 50th year of broadcasting Hereford High School football games. Simon served as Hereford as the Deaf-Smith County judge for many years and eventually went on to serve as mayor. During his many decades of broadcasting Hereford sports, he's traveled countless miles, broadcasted over 500 football games, and announced countless basketball games and volleyball matches. For his longtime commitment and dedication to the Hereford community and their athletic programs, and one who has an office in Hereford and knows what he does for the rest of us, the 2021 Special Achievement Award goes to Tom Simons. Lukey Songpersert has cemented her name in the annals of West Texas A&M University golf program. A graduate student, she recently finished 9th overall in the NCAA Division II National Championship. She was also named a WGCA All-American and was selected to both the WGCA All-Region team and the All-Lone Star Conference first team for the 4th time. During the most recent season, Lukey set a WT record for the lowest 54-hole total at 6 under par while competing at the Lone Star Conference Championships. She now holds the school record for the lowest scoring average for any player. Lukey's roughing it this summer, and she's completing an internship at Medina Country Club outside of Chicago and couldn't be with us today, and we are more than happy to accept this award and this Special Achievement Award and congratulating Lukey Songpersert for all of her efforts at WT. The Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame Committee is made up of dedicated individuals, and let me tell you, they have a tough job. If you've ever seen the book of all the people that have been nominated for these awards, it's thick. Recently, one of our longtime members, Pat Nolan, announced her retirement from this committee. It's the only time I'll ever call her Pat Nolan again. She's Mrs. Nolan to me. She was my 3rd and 4th grade PE teacher. While we're sad to see her go, we're extremely thankful for her years of service to this organization, for her longtime commitment and all the games that she's attended to help us pick athletes and coaches of the year for many, many years. This Special Achievement Award goes to Ms. Nolan. Matt Stewart and the West Texas A&M track program had quite the year in 2021. During the indoor season, Matt led the Buffs to their first ever appearance on the podium at the NCAA Division II Indoor National Championships when the team finished 3rd overall. He also coached 3 athletes to individual national championship titles. The outdoor season was even more successful for Matt and his teams. The Buffs took home 2nd place honors at the national championship meet, while the Lady Buffs finished 3rd overall. The program also brought home 5 various individual titles. Coach couldn't be with us today, so accepting this on his behalf is Jake Krolik. Our 2021 final Special Achievement Award goes to Matt Stewart, West Texas A&M.
You know, the lure of sports is the drama, the moments that cause stomachs to churn, palms to sweat, throats to tighten. The Big Play Award from the Hall of Fame annually is presented for such a moment as this. It goes to the play regardless of sport or level of competition. That means the difference in ultimate victory or just crushing defeat. I have never seen a year with such big plays. I mean, you got 3-pointers at the buzzer to get to a national title game. They have 3-pointers to win state titles. You have a steal and a layup to win another. You got a grand slam that was the difference in a national championship. Every one of them worthy, and every one as big as they can get. And then there's this one. Canadian trailed Franklin 34-28 with 42 seconds left in the Class 3A Division II state championship game last December at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Franklin had scored with 1 minute and 2 seconds left for their first lead of the game, but they missed the extra point. 6-point deficit, but things not looking good for the Wildcats when they came to the line of scrimmage at their own 48, 52 yards away from the end zone, and the clock is ticking down under 40 seconds. Earlier that week, assistant coach Hayden Murkett came to head coach Chris Ketting, kind of had an idea for play. He said, I think this will work. And that was to motion the lone running back out of the backfield, kind of spread the defense out, and have quarterback Josh Colwell hit tight end Reagan Cochran down the seam. Thought it might gain a few yards. Well, that week it snowed 8 inches in Canadian. And the Wildcats practiced it once in the gym. Seemed to go okay in the gym, but it's the gym. The day before the game, in a walk-through practice at Springtown High School, they tried it for the second time. Seemed to go fine against air. But during the state title game, Josh Colwell had bugged Coach Kenning to run the play. Hey, we need to run this play. The play was called Patriot. That was Hayden Murkett's name for it. Why Patriot? Who knows, but it's his play. He can call it what he wants. Coach Kenning said, no, let's hold on to it for a while. Well, with less than 40 seconds left and the ball near midfield, it's time to quit holding on to it. There's your background. This is not in a gym, and it was not at practice walkthrough. Here's your play, Canadian, trailing 34-28, state championship on the line.
Colwell calls for it, backpedals, looks, throws deep, middle of the field. Man down there, pass is caught. Reagan Cochran to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Reagan Cochran.
I can tell you that clip has been seen more times in Canadian than Seinfeld reruns. And if Hayden Murkett didn't get a nice bonus out of that, something's wrong. The point after was good with 28 seconds left, and Canadian had a dramatic 35-34 state title win. To accept the Hall of Fame Big Play Award from Canadian High School, Josh Colwell, the man who threw it, Reagan Cochran, the man who caught it, and somewhere, Hayden Murkett, he's still smiling. Guys, I've been doing this a long time, not just the Hall of Fame, but sports in the Panhandle, and I can tell you, there has never been a year like this one. And it's really not that close. You're about to see how much in the recognition of team and individual national and state champions and team and individual team champions, which we've been doing the last several years. In addition to that is the D. Henry Memorial Courage Award, which is presented to an area athlete who in some ways has overcome obstacles to persevere and achieve when the odds say that they should not. For the champion's presentation of the D. Henry Award is Hall of Fame committee member Phil Woodall.
Thanks, John Mark. Jake Krolik, please stand. Jake, if you noticed, he was clean shaven. He says he's not shaving that beard till he advances to the trials, so that's the main thing. Jake, congratulations, you've done well. Y'all seen the commercial about PDFs? Who wants to open a PDF? I am technologically challenged, but they let me do it. So here we go. And what I would like for you to do, if you don't mind, please don't applaud, hold your applause to the end so we can give her up. We got a bunch of them this year. And if you are the individual, please stand, head back to the back table and grab your plaque. Shanna, you're going to have a lot to take back down to Canyon with you today. So here we go. We start out with the national champions. These are the team national champions. Obviously, the NCAA Division II softball champions, the West Texas A&M Lady Buffs. Now, let's go to individuals and national champions. Indoor track, Benjamin Azamati, men's 60-meter dash. Zeta Swoops, women's shot put. Taylor Nellums, women's triple jump. NCAA Division II individual national champions in outdoor track, Benjamin Azamati, 100 and 200-meter run. Butari Rujanara, 800-meter run. I hope I didn't butcher that too badly. Zeta Swoops, there she is again, discus, and Taylor Nellums of triple jump competition. Let's go to our state teen champions in the state of Texas. Boys wrestling, Randall High, 5A, 2020 and 21. Girls wrestling, Randall High again, this time 5A in 2021. Girls basketball, back to 2020, Groover High School 2A, Nazareth High School 1A in 2020. In 2021, Canyon High School 4A. In boys basketball, we mentioned before, 2A 2021 Clarendon and also Texline. Let's get to another state team champion. Girls cross country 4A, Canyon 2020, Nazareth 1A 2020. And team tennis, Hereford in 4A 2020. In volleyball, 3A, Bushland in 2020. In football, Canadian 3A 2020. And in girls track and field, as we told you earlier, 2A, and this year, Panhandle High School. Now we have a bunch of individual state champions. And trust me, we checked everyone out, made sure I had them correct. So here we go. Boys wrestling from 2020, Jaden Heaton of Randall, 160 pounds. Branson Britton, Randall, 5A, 170 pounds. Boys wrestling this year, in 2021, Ashton Burnett, Randall, 106 pounds. Andres Mendoza of Randall, 5A, 126 pounds. Robert Wees, Dumas, 132 pounds. Ali Yarnt, Dumas, 5A, 138 pounds. Jared Gallegos, Randall, 145 pounds and 5A. And Branson Britton again, as John Mark said, he got a little bigger, like to eat, 182 pounds. In girls wrestling, believe it or not, they allow women to say what their weight is. In Randall 5A, Avery Stout, 95 pounds. Jaron Ortegon from Randall 5A, 102 pounds. Tatiana Garcia from Caprock, 119 pounds. In girls cross country, 2020, Kyla Kane of Wellington in 2A. In boys track and field in this year, and boy, this was unbelievable how many we had down there. Canyon 4A, Samuel Ashley, 1,600-meter run. Brennan Thompson Spearman 3A, 200-meter run. Heston Marshall Wheeler 2A, 400-meter run. Alex Thompson Panhandle 2A, 300-meter hurdles. Dustin Bryant Wilderado, how about that team? 1A long jump. Stetson James of Happy 1A, 300-meter hurdles. Girls track and field, just unbelievable. Cashley Dickinson Canyon 4A pole vault. Avery Winfrey of Canyon 4A, 300-meter hurdles and 800-meter run. Brianna Stewart of Canyon 4A, 3,200-meter run. Jillian Howell of Bushland 3A, shot put. Skylar Maurer of Panhandle 2A, 4x100-meter relay, and also a member of the 4x400-meter relay. Macklin Land, Panhandle 2A, 4x100-meter relay, 4x400-meter relay, and 400-meter run. That's three of those. Mason Jones, Panhandle 2A, 4x100 relay. Also, Sydney 80 from Panhandle 2A. She was in the 4x100 and 4x400-meter relay. Emery Sides from Panhandle, 4x400-meter relay. Delaney Weaver, Groover, 2A, 3,200-meter run. Ella Strickland of Sunray, 2A, pole vault. Kyla Kane, there she is again, Wellington, 2A, 1,600-meter run. Emma Clayman, Nazareth, 1A, 1,600-meter run. Anna Hudson, Miami, 1A, 100-meter and 200-meter run. Kenley Johnson, Happy, 1A, 400-meter run. McKenna Bird of Wildorado, 1A, 110-meter and 300-meter hurdles. I'm losing breath right now. We got so many of those. And in boys golf, I need him to be an A player on my scramble team. From Fort Elliott, 1A, Gatlin Goad. Spring tennis, 2021, bunch of them. From Amarillo High, 5A, mixed doubles, Jackson Harwell and Eleanor Archer. In Canyon, 4A, boys singles, Bryce Ware again. And in mixed doubles in Hereford, 4A, Victoria Betson and Nicholas Villalobos. I think I got them all. If I messed up, blame it on the computer. If your name was called, collect those after the end. They're on the back table back there. And first of all, why don't y'all stand if you won part of a state championship, national championship, coach, player, whatever. Please stand and let us properly say thank you. Thank you very much. That's the future of our country, and it looks pretty darn good, I think. All right, next is the D. Henry Award. You've read about it in your booklet. I don't know if our recipient is here, but they will let me know. Back in May of 2018, Norma Solomon was a sophomore wrestler at Bushland High School, and she was involved in a four-wheeler accident. Here was her quote. "You know, we decided it was fun to race, R-A-C-E. Well, she tried to stop. Her brother had stopped in front of her. Her nephew was on it. She had a big dip, and that four-wheeler landed right on top of her. It's like having Branson Britton land on top of you. Sorry, Branson. Well, she was airlifted to Lubbock, 5 days in the hospital, had a neck brace for 2 weeks, and then she sat out her entire junior season of wrestling at Bushland. And then in 2020, she became the district and regional wrestling champion in her weight class, and down at the UIL state wrestling tournament in Cypress near Houston, she finished in 5th place in the 2020 UIL wrestling tournament. She currently is on a wrestling scholarship at Central Christian College in McPherson, Kansas. So the winner of our D. Henry Courage Award from Bushland High is Norma Solomon, and I don't think Norman's here. And I will say that she was very appreciative of the award, and we thank her for her perseverance and courage. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Well, now to the signature portion of this afternoon's ceremonies. The addition of the newest class of 5 into the previous 62 into the Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. You know, there's something unique about the Panhandle, and if you've lived here for any length of time, you know that. Maybe it's the location. Maybe it's because we're often an afterthought to the bigger populations downstate, or maybe it's because we have to fight a lot harder for what we deserve. But there's a togetherness, a sense of oneness, of unity that exists here that's hard to find in most other regions. You know, in sports, we have some bitter rivals. And we fight each other like cats and dogs on the field or on the court, on the mats, until we take on outsiders, and then it's all for one. There's an unmistakable pride here in the Panhandle, perhaps born of where we are. But when an athlete or coach excels beyond our region or within over a period of time, they kind of no longer have hometowns. They're just from here. And in a way, they're part of us. Their success is our success, and their heartbreak at times is our heartbreak. So in a simple yet sincere way, every year since 1959, we honor them the best way that we can. You know, really, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for all you've done. Thanking you for making us proud of the Panhandle. And thank you for calling it home. You know, when a person becomes a stranger in his hometown, something sad has happened. Someone has turned his back on the other. The past is forgotten, the roots are pulled up and thrown away, and part of him or her is gone and never to return to the place where it began. On the other hand, I can think of no better honor than from those where you grew up, where your career started or where it continued for as long as it could. It's a place where in the smallest of towns you learned the game of football, went on to be one of the Southwest Conference's top offensive linemen in the 1960s, then spent 25 years at the highest level of the Secret Service to protect 6 presidents. It's a place where you started shooting baskets in a park from across where you lived, led your high school to a state championship with a state tournament performance that's yet to be matched, and on to become one of his university's all-time guards. It's a place where you were among the earliest to compete when girls and women's sports were offered in the 1970s, turning a walk-on position into the school's first 2-time female All-American, and later a 30-year-plus career as a successful track and cross-country coach. It's a place where you grew up, leading your small school to 2 state titles, where starting guard as a sophomore in a national championship team, and later became her university's all-time winningest coach. In a place where you traded a career as a sporting goods salesman for a 42-year career that will likely never be equaled. You know, to be honored by your hometown says a lot about you as an athlete and a coach, but it says so much more about you as a person. So, let's get to it, and let's install the 63rd class into the Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. In many ways, Steve Garmon's life reads like a storybook about a young boy from a small town who dreamed big. Growing up in the farming community of Groom, which in the 1940s and 50s had a population of maybe 600, he was the 3rd oldest of 8 children. He lived in a house that his dad, Walter, built himself. He'd be the first to tell you that they didn't have much money. As he said back then, the world was kind of a different place. And in small towns across Texas, if you were a boy, you played football. There were 42 boys in high school in Groom, and in his junior year in 1958, 40 played football, and the 2 others were managers. As Steve said, God blessed him with some size and a fair amount of speed. He started both ways as a 185-pound freshman and hardly left the field for the next 4 years. The Tigers won 3 district championships and a regional title in 1958, which at the time was the furthest that Class B teams could advance. As a senior, he was 210 pounds. Not bad size at all for back then. Well, colleges noticed, major colleges noticed. There were some older sons of a neighbor who had gone on and played a little bit of football at Texas, and that kind of sowed a seed in Steve. A man named Kenneth Miller was his coach his senior year, and he grew up near Fort Worth. He pushed TCU on his prize lineman. Well, Steve was a Methodist, and he thought, well, SMU. Miller said, no, you don't want to do that. So while Oklahoma and Texas A&M and Texas Tech and others recruited him, TCU was the most persistent with assistant line coach Allie White and head coach Abe Martin. As valedictorian of his class, he signed with the Horned Frogs in 1960. And coming from Groom to Fort Worth, he said, was like being in the middle of Manhattan. There were times in his first 6 months that he just wanted to chuck it all and leave, but he hung in there. It didn't take but a few freshman games to realize that he could hold his own. And as a sophomore, he injured his ankle badly and was redshirted. The following season in 1962, he spot started a little bit and played in about half of TCU's games. And that set the stage for his junior and senior years in 1963 and 64. By now, he was 220 pounds. He was quick. He was smart. He was country strong. And Steve became one of the best offensive linemen in the Southwest Conference over that period of time. Not once, but twice, he was named first team All-Southwest Conference as a guard. Steve was TCU's only two-time All-Conference offensive lineman in the 1960s and was later named to TCU's All-Decade Team of the 60s by Texas Football Magazine. He was good enough to earn an invitation to play in the East-West Shrine All-Star Game in 1964, which at that time was a collection of the best college football players in the country. It turned out to be his last football game. He was invited to try out with the Cleveland Browns, but Steve had other things on his mind. He graduated from TCU with a degree in political science, and then he would get his master's in public policy at USC. A football teammate of his was keen on the FBI as a career, and that kind of intrigued him. But if you remember, 1964 and 65 was in the wake of the Kennedy assassination, and the Secret Service was in a hiring mode. It had been understaffed, and as Steve said, it was maybe either that or go to Vietnam. So by September of 1965, Steve was a Secret Service special agent. There are two divisions in the Secret Service, counterfeiting and protection. And Steve spent most of his career in protection. And if you think there's pressure to protect the quarterback on a drop back pass, well, compare that to protecting a president when he's in a crowd. Steve helped protect Presidents Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, and George Bush Sr. 6 presidents and Vice President Nelson Rockefeller in a 25-year career that saw him rise to number 2 in the Deputy Director of the Secret Service. After that, he worked in security for the Department of Commerce and investigations for the Inspector General's office. He and his wife, Ann, of 53 years, have 3 daughters and 4 grandchildren. They live near Warrenton, Virginia, and because of distance and because of some health issues, Steve could not be here today, but he is here by video. The 188th member of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame, from Groom, from TCU, Mr. Steve Garman.
Greetings. My name is Steve Garman. My message here is being recorded in order to communicate my appreciation for being inducted into the Kids Incorporated Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person to receive the honor. I live in Virginia, and due to my age, the distance from my home in Virginia to Amarillo, and personal health issues, I can't be with you in person. As the Master of Ceremonies, John Ballou, will tell you, or possibly he's already told you, I grew up in the small Texas Panhandle town of Groom. For those of you who may not be familiar with Groom, it is a small town of approximately 500 people. It's about 40 miles east of Amarillo on Interstate 40, or what was previously US Route 66. I attended high school in Groom, which at the time competed in athletics at the Class B level. There were usually a total of some 80 kids enrolled in the 4 grades of high school there. Of the 80, there were usually about 40 of us that were boys. So you can imagine that a boy with a bit of modest size, a little speed, and a commitment to excel could make the grade fairly easily. I think I satisfied all 3 of these requirements. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm lacking humility, but it turns out that the game of football was the basis for most of the personal achievements in my life after I graduated from high school. The lessons I learned from football helped me to understand that to succeed in life, one must be willing to endure pain and hardship both physical and mental. One has to be willing to forego other less demanding endeavors while concentrating on the task at hand. One has to be able to accept the disappointment of defeat, as well as to enjoy the exhilaration of victory, and to do so with a spirit of good sportsmanship. One has to be willing to abide by the rules and to be a team player. Each of these things is applicable to almost all aspects of our lives, but they were paramount as the basis for whatever my achievements after football might have been. I understand that John Ballou will provide a summary of my biography, which reflects my personal history in Groom and at Texas Christian University and in my life after college. I can't proceed here without expressing my sincere appreciation to Hal Ratcliffe, formerly of Dimmitt, Texas. He was a friend and a classmate of mine at TCU. I understand that he was the person who recommended my induction into the Hall of Fame. He attended TCU on a basketball scholarship while I was there on a football scholarship. In addition to thanking Hal, I must thank the entire Groom community for all of the encouragement and support provided to me during my youth. It was a great place to grow up, and despite its small size, it provided me with almost all of the tools I would need to succeed in life. I need to give special recognition to my high school football coaches. Weldon Doc Bates, who coached me during my freshman, sophomore, and junior year, and Kenneth Miller, who was the head coach during my senior year. They convinced and inspired me to believe that I could use my God-given talents to succeed at a level beyond high school. For that, I will be eternally grateful, and especially to Coach Miller, who convinced me that TCU was the right fit for me. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize my high school classmates who supported and befriended me during my formative years. Their friendship will always be a treasure to me. It is imperative that I remember my deceased parents, Walter and Orly Garman, and the influence they had on my life decisions and its outcome. Add to that the influence of my brothers and sisters, all 7 of them, and how could I miss? There are multitudes of other individuals and groups who deserve credit and recognition for any success I may have had in my life, and I apologize for failing to mention them specifically in my comments here. Finally, I would be terribly remiss and ungrateful if I did not mention Stacy Knight, John Ballou, and the staff of Kids Incorporated, who exhibited tremendous patience with me as they orchestrated my induction into the Hall of Fame. In conclusion, I compliment all of the other current, past, and future inductees of the Hall of Fame. I'm confident that I've been included among some very talented, accomplished, and deserving individuals who all among us should aspire to emulate. Thank you once again. I appreciate this more than words can express.
Steve Garman, number 188. Rayford Young's parents didn't need to worry too much where their son was most of the time when he was young. Living in the Prairie Village section of Pampa, usually all they had to do was look out the window. And across the street, not very far away, was Prairie Village Park with its basketball court there. More times than not, Rayford was over there shooting a basketball. In the 1980s, maybe he pretended to be Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson, or being the basketball town that it was, maybe he just wanted to be one of his uncles or cousins or any number of Harvester greats. When he got into high school, like a lot of kids, Rayford had the idea, well, the team's just going to revolve around me. But Robert Hale, his head coach, begged to differ. In fact, Pampa's jersey numbers back then symbolically either had a 5 in them or the numbers added up to 5 to indicate 5 on the floor. Through his first 3 years in high school, Pampa was always knocking on the door, but couldn't quite knock it down. Then came Rayford's senior year. Coach Hale was smart enough to know that, while it was a team game, the Harvesters were only going to go as far as this 5'11", 160-pound guard could carry them. And he has pretty broad shoulders. He was quick. He was fast. He could shoot. He could defend. He played with a passion that left it all on the courts. None was more evident than against Sweetwater in the 1996 4A Regional Finals. Pampa was down by 9 with 1:30 left. It was over, except it wasn't. One of the most incredible 90 seconds in Panhandle basketball history. Rayford scored the game's last 11 points in that span to give Pampa a stunning 2-point victory in the berth in the state tournament. The game ended with Rayford jumping up on the scores table, pumping his fist to the enthusiastic Pampa crowd, and it was not in a look-at-me kind of way. It was just in the sheer exuberance that they had won and were going to Austin. In the state tournament, Rayford basically willed the Harvesters to a state championship. In a 63-59 semifinal win over Round Rock McNeil, he had 34 points and 4 steals, more than half of Pampa's points. In an 82-68 championship win over Dallas Madison, he had 33 points, aided by 11 of 14 shooting. His 67 points set at the time a 4A state tournament record. And it's still the most points scored by a male player from the Panhandle in the state tournament. Well, kind of because of his size maybe and the fact that he didn't play maybe AAU basketball, he wasn't all that highly recruited despite being 2-time All-State. But he signed with James Dickey and Texas Tech. And in many ways, his individual performance at Tech mirrored what he did at Pampa. He got better every year, and it also included one incredible moment. From 1997 to 2000, he played in 108 games, and he just got better each year for the Red Raiders. He went from scoring 7.4 points a game as a freshman to 15.4 to 16.1 to 17.3 as a senior. He is 4th all-time at Tech in assists and steals. He led the Big 12 twice in free throw percentage, and he was 2nd all Big 12 as a junior and senior. But he will be forever known for a game against nationally ranked Kansas on February the 13th, 1999. He scored 41 points in a 90-84 upset of the Jayhawks, 7th highest point total all time at Tech. That doesn't tell the story. He scored 35 points in the second half. That doesn't tell the story. He scored 32 points in the last 8 minutes and 56 seconds of the game. And I remember watching that. It was like a highlight video and fast forward. 3-point, layup, 3-point, foul, shoot, foul. It was just on and on. As Rayford said to me last month, he said, man, it's like the Holy Ghost came over me. Amen, brother. At that game was Rayford's wife, Candace, and their 5-month-old son, Trey. And in the celebration afterward, there was kind of a mosh pit of bodies on the court and everything like that. Rayford had the presence of mind to know, well, I'm here hugging. Candace is here hugging. Where's Trey? Well, apparently he got handed off, and he was fine. Rayford has 4 children, and of course Trey is the oldest. And maybe you've put 2 and 2 together by now, but if you didn't already know, but Trey Young, guard with the Atlanta Hawks, is one of the top players in the NBA. He was taken as the 5th player overall in the 2018 draft. They're currently in a series with the Philadelphia 76ers right now. Otherwise, he and many more family members would be here. After several years in medical sales, Rayford is now the guiding force behind 2 family foundations in the Young and Trey Young name, which go to combat many things, including mental health issues and online bullying. You know, Rayford to be the first to tell you that he's proud of all of his kids. And especially in the last few years, he's been proud just to be known as Trey Young's dad. But Trey Young has always been proud of his dad. Especially today, would be proud to be known as Rayford Young's son. One of the very best basketball players ever from the Panhandle. The 189th member of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame from Pampa and Texas Tech, Mr. Rayford Young.
Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. So I really got to speak. All right, I'll make this quick for you guys. First off, I'm so happy to be here today. I want to thank everyone that was part of making this possible for myself and my family. And you know what? To be frank, all the high school kids that were nominated or won awards today, won state championships, I want you guys to stand up. Please stand up. Please. Yeah, I wanted these kids to you know, really recognize their achievements. Listening to all the accomplishments that you guys have had, it reminded me of a story that my coach told me back in high school. You guys can be seated. And that story was about being the Cinderella of the dance. And I didn't understand that until I was older, coming from the Texas Panhandle, and wanting to be the Cinderella of the dance, wanting to be part of that team that went to the big city of Austin and won the state championship. You know, not much is expected from us here in the Panhandle. So when we achieve greatness like you guys have done, you know, give thanks. Give thanks to the people that have made it happen. Your parents, your teammates, everyone that has helped you get to this level. And there's so much further to go, but I just wanted to recognize you guys and say thank you for bringing back that memory for me. But as with any award or accomplishment I've always received, I was always taught that it's a team effort. It's never just about me, and this award is no different. There have been so many people that have made sacrifices for me, like I said earlier, and that is why I try to live my life giving to others, because I truly feel they are deserving and they're part of my journey. And I'll be brief today, but I want to give thanks to a few people. First of all, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Second of all, my mom and dad. My dad who couldn't be here today, but my Uncle Rodney's here, who's like my second dad and probably my biggest fan. Thank you. My wife and kids. You know, Candace has been with me since, 1990, 94. She was a girlfriend that was my biggest cheerleader, and we ended up, you know, having a kid at a young age and didn't know how we're going to afford to put diapers on him and feed him. And, you know, God had a plan for us. So my daughter Caitlin, my son Trey, my daughter Cameron, and my 11-year-old Timothy, who wasn't added to the program, so he's going to be upset about that when he makes the NBA and you guys didn't add it. So, and you know, also I want to thank my teammates that have helped me get this award today, that helped me become the person I am today. But you know, most importantly, I want to thank my high school coach, Coach Robert Hill. I can go on and on telling stories about, you know, him. You know, if I don't get it right, you know, he's going to make some changes. He kept the pressure on me from a freshman who was hard-headed and was pretty cocky, and like you said, I thought the team was about me, to teaching me how to be a leader. So I want to thank you, Coach Hill, for that. You know, I want to tell a story about that Sweetwater game. You know, my family got in the car and drove to Lubbock, Texas that day, and, you know, we were down by, I think it was 7 or 9 points with a minute left, and I just remember being in that huddle, and, you know, if you know me at all, I'm going to always talk about teamwork, and it's not just about one person. And we stuck together, and we ended up winning that game like you just said. And I think that night, well, I know that night changed my life. Because as a kid that came from the Panhandle who was under-recruited, for me to do that in Lubbock, Texas, at Texas Tech, and to do it in front of James Dickey, who's a mentor of mine, that night truly changed my life. And that night was all about winning. And I think all you kids in here, you realize right now that you guys are winning. You guys are winners, and you're still winning. So keep it going, because that's what it's all about. In a game of sports, it's about winning. And don't ever forget that. You know, finally, I just want to say, like Mr. Steve Garman said, even though I grew up in a small town, that small town of Pampa has given me the ultimate tools to be successful anywhere. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that. And, you know, it took a village for me to get here. And so it's ironic that I grew up in a small town called Pampa, Texas, in an area called Prairie Village. I had so many people that thought they were my parents. I couldn't do anything wrong, or they would go tattletale on me and tell my parents. And I'm truly grateful for that. I'm truly grateful for everyone that's been in my life. And, you know, one thing that I'm going to leave you guys with, I'm so excited to get this award and be part of this group that are going to be wearing these beautiful jackets. And that's one thing I can hold over my son's head. He may be a 22-year-old all-star and on his way to being an NBA Hall of Famer, but he's never going to be a Panhandle Hall of Famer. Thank you.
Thank you, Rayford. Congratulations again. Continuing with the Pampa theme, about 18 years before Rayford Young was firing a basketball to goal in a park, Sharon Moultrie began playing girls softball for an Optimist Club league. It's about 1970 or so. She was good at softball, enjoyed it. But also softball was one of the few sports that were available for girls about 50 years ago. In the 7th grade, she got interested in track. The only thing, Pampa Junior High didn't have track for girls. So she and a few others went to the high school to work out with the older girls. When she got to high school in the mid-1970s, she played basketball, but was still kind of at a recreational level at that high class, and she aged out of softball, so track it was. Her coach, Betty Chamberlain, maxed her out in 5 events: the 440 and 880 relays, the 100, the long jump, triple jump. Didn't take long to qualify for regional on all those events. And as a senior, she qualified not only for all 5 events, but she set a district record of 18 feet, 2.5 in the long jump. Missed going to state by a quarter inch. You know, college athletic scholarships were few and far between for women in the late 1970s, but Sharon knew that she needed a college education. Two sisters graduated from West Texas State, but ultimately she chose Texas Tech to try it out not only for the women's track team, just to walk on, but much to her happiness, maybe rekindle her love for softball. Didn't take long for Tech women's track coach Beta Little to see what she had in this girl who just showed up and asked if she could work out with the track team. Softball and track kind of conflicted. They were at the same time, and trying to do both could be a problem. Coach Little said, you know, I know you like softball, and you're probably good at it, but you can be really good at track if you focus on that. And so she did. You know, women's sports was not even in the NCAA in those days, but in the AIAW, which is the Association of Intercollegiate Athletics for Women. As a freshman, she won the Texas state title in the long jump at over 19 feet, qualified for nationals. Coach Little told the Tech newspaper, the University Daily, she called her my secret weapon. And Sharon got that scholarship. Over the next 3 years, Sharon was the leader on the Tech track team and a fixture at the national meets. Under the guidance of new coach Jarvis Scott, a former U.S. Olympian, she honed Sharon's talents. Like at Pampa, she ran on the 400 and 800 relays and individually focused on the sprints and the jumps. She was a 7-time national qualifier, indoors and outdoors, in multiple events. All-American honors are awarded to those who finish in the top 8 at the national meet. Both in 81 and 82, Sharon finished 6th in the national meet with a best of 19 feet, 6.5 inches to become Tech's first 2-time female All-American. She was named the outstanding senior athlete at Tech in 1982. And her 60-meter time indoors is still among the top 8 times at Tech nearly 40 years later. Her best in the long jump was at an AAU meet, not a sanctioned college meet, but she went 20 feet, 11 inches. There was another first as well. In November of 1981, she became Tech's first African-American homecoming queen. For the last 36 years, she has coached track and cross country at South Grand Prairie High School. For the first 15 years, she coached both boys and girls cross country. Her girls' track teams have won numerous district titles, 3 regional championships, and have been 2nd and 3rd at state on at least a couple of other occasions. Sharon was inducted into the Texas Tech Athletics Hall of Honor in 1999 and the Texas Black Sports Hall of Fame in 2001. She has 2 adult sons, and she is gone from walk-on to 2-time All-American, the 190th member of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame, from Pampa, from Texas Tech, Ms. Sharon Moultrie Bruner. Sharon, congratulations very much. I'll just put this right here for you, and you can. Okay.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to give honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who have made this all possible, and he continues to bless me and show me favor, and for that, I'm so grateful. I would like to thank the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame and Kids Incorporated for this prestigious honor. It is indeed a great honor, and I'm excited to be a part of the class of 2021 inductees. I want to first thank my mother, my late mother, Artie Moultrie. Thank you, Mama, for showing me what it means to be a hardworking, dedicated, and how to put God first, woman of God. Thank you for being my greatest role model. My mother often spoke of the importance of work ethic. I remember her saying, don't ever give up, no matter what. If you're going to do something, give it your all. Be the best you can be. Work as hard as you can. Today, I am the woman I am because I lived by the things that she taught me and the things that she instilled in me. So thank you, Mom. I would like to mention a few people who played a pivotal role in my life and my success. To the late Bobby Morrow, he was my first coach at the Pampa Optimist Club. And he introduced me to being in the sport and given me the opportunity to play and compete on my first team in the early 70s. To my grade school and middle school PE teachers, the great Bob Sanders, who played for the Green Bay Packers, was my PE teacher. And Coach Bonnie Grantham was my elementary PE teacher, my junior high PE teacher. Thank you. Coach Sanders would tell me all the time, you have great athletic ability, and that's going to take you somewhere someday. You're going to be a real athlete one day. He used to allow me to play on his team, just he and I, and we'd play against the other students in the PE class. Wow, that was so special for me. It just felt special to be pointed out and like, all right, come over here and play with me. While I was in middle school, Coach Grantham took me to the high school, just as they mentioned, and I got the opportunity to work out with the high school track team. This played a major part of my competitiveness. To my high school coach, the late Betty Chamberlain, thank you for introducing me to the long jump. I also would like to thank Coach Beta Little, who is here tonight. Coach Little was the head track coach at Texas Tech in 1978 when I entered as a freshman. She gave me the opportunity to walk on the track team as an unrecruited athlete and decided to take a chance on me. That chance was all I needed. And it's been onward and upward from there. Thank you, Coach Little. And the late Coach Jarvis Scott was the head coach at Texas Tech for my 1979 through 83, from my freshman year to my senior year. Thank you so much for being an influence in my life, Coach Scott, and my career. Coach Scott was a heavily decorated athlete herself, as they were mentioned. She was a member of the 1968 Olympic team. Not only did she lead me in so many to be successful on the national level, but she was a mom away from home. A few things she instilled in me, and I've never forgotten, and I've even passed on to my athletes in my over 30 years of teaching and coaching. First, the 3 Ds: dedication, desire, and determination. She also instilled, don't let anyone ever get in the way of you achieving your goals. To my hometown friends from Pampa, Texas, and to my friends and teammates from Texas Tech, thank you so much for your love and your support. I stand here today to represent all of you. Because of all these great people and the influence that I've had in my life and my success, I have been living and thriving in my passion for over the last 30 years. And oh, what an experience and oh, what a rewarding experience this has been. Last but not least, I want to thank my family for supporting me in everything that I'm involved in. I want to thank my sons, Gerard and Julian, and my grandmother and my granddaughter for your unconditional love and support. To my siblings, Ed, Rob, Ruby, and Thelma, thanks for taking every step of my journey with me. I love you so much. Lastly, thank you again to the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame and the Kids Incorporated for making this all possible. God bless you.
Congratulations again, Sharon. You know, it's very evident that Noel Johnson had a knack for this game of basketball. It was at tiny, and I mean tiny, Kelton High School. Actually, it was before that. She played well on the junior high team. It should be said that she was in the 5th grade. Kelton needed the numbers, but they needed the talents of that 10-year-old even more. As a high school freshman in 1988, she led Kelton to the furthest playoff advancement ever, the 1A regional finals, before falling to, of course, the Nazareth Dynasty. Kind of like Rayford, she could drive, she could shoot, she could handle the ball, she could play defense, whatever was needed. When she had to, Noel could just dominate. You know, there were some small school coaches in the eastern part of the Panhandle that kind of like to shoot the breeze together, as coaches often do, and give each other a hard time. Well, one coach said in several of these bull sessions that he might get beat, but he would never get beat by one player, and that he couldn't understand how a coach could let one player beat him. Well, Kenneth Martindale, the coach at Sam Norwood, kind of filed that one away. And when he saw the coach in question on a Saturday of the Sam Norwood tournament, he had a question for him. Hey, how many points did y'all score against Kelton last Thursday night? He goes, 35. Fine. And how many points did that Johnson girl score? How many points did that Johnson girl score? 37. What? 37? Well, it's a good thing you don't let one player beat you. After her sophomore season, her father, Dean Johnson, superintendent at Kelton, got the same job at Nazareth. His friends cast a suspicious eye that it might not have been his administrative skills, but his youngest child that got him the job. But at any rate, Noel was a 2-time All-Stater in 1990 and 91 and led the Swiftettes to consecutive 1A state titles. After that second title, her senior year, Dean told his coffee-drinking buddies that he was waiting to see what college he was going to be president of, because according to them, the only reason he got the Nazareth job was because of Noel, and here she was about to play basketball in college. Alas, Dean did not ascend to the presidency of Texas Tech. Well, he kind of wanted his daughter to go to WT. Tech coach Marcia Sharp had other ideas for this player who would excel in any class. At a point when the Lady Raiders were about to really take off, she made a home visit, and the Johnsons were won over. For the next 4 years, Noel Johnson played a key role on the greatest teams in Lady Raider history, including the 1993 national champions. She played in 135 out of a possible 136 games, a period of time in which Tech was 119-17. It's a cliche, but it's also true. As a guard, in the last 2 years as a point guard, she was often that coach on the court, getting the offense in the right set, getting the ball to the right people, carrying out Coach Sharp's instructions. She was that sometimes invisible glue that every great team needs. As a sophomore in 1993, it was the Cheryl Swoops show, especially her 48 points in the national title game. But it was Noel who hit 4 big free throws in the last 31 seconds. Turned out to be big free throws in an 84-82 national title win over Ohio State. It was in the Omni in Atlanta on national TV. But the way she confidently knocked them down, it might as well have been against Shamrock on a January Tuesday night. In her career, Noel scored 1,244 points, was the best three-point shooter in Lady Raider history, 43%, ranked 7th all-time in assists with 410. She was a 3-time All-Southwest Conference player. For her play, she has been inducted into the Texas Tech Hall of Honor in 2005, the Texas High School Basketball Hall of Fame in 2018, and the Southwest Hall of Honor in 2019. She's on the all-time Lady Raider basketball team. After her career, Noelle yearned to coach. She spent 9 seasons as an assistant at Texas State in San Marcos and 1 year at North Texas before landing the head coaching job at Midwestern University in Wichita Falls in 2009. She coached the Lady Mustangs for the next 12 seasons. Noelle became the winningest women's coach in school history with 158 wins. Was named the Lone Star Coach of the Year in 2013 after Midwestern won the conference crown and advanced to the regional finals in their best season in history. All 37 players who completed their eligibility under Noelle earned their degree. You know, the best teach the rest so much during their successes, during the time that they excel, during the time that they're on top of the world. The very few, the special, teach us even more during the unfairness of life, in the valleys, when they face death. That was Noelle Johnson in the last year of her life and her very public battle with ovarian cancer, coaching until the final month of the 2020 season. Her courage, her spirit, her love for others impacted those from Wichita Falls to Lubbock, from the Panhandle to many places beyond, until her death at age 47 just more than a year ago, June 9th, 2020. You should know that the first people that she called when she got the difficult cancer diagnosis was, of course, her parents, Dean and Agatha Johnson. The second person she called was her college coach, Marcia Sharp. And even though they had not really been together on a consistent basis for nearly 25 years, that spoke of their relationship. Marcia is no stranger to the Panhandle or to these ceremonies. She is a 2006 inductee into the Hall of Fame. Grew up in Tullian, hop, skip, and a jump from Nazareth. The Johnson family requested that she represent Noelle today, and the 2003 inductee into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame is doing just that. To accept is Marcia Sharp for the 191st member of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame from Kelton, from Nazareth, Texas Tech, and Midwestern, Miss Noelle Johnson.
Thank you, guys. I am both very honored and very heartbroken to be here today. As you can imagine, this has been an unbelievably difficult year for a lot of folks who love Noelle so much. Most of all to her parents, and I want to thank them, Dean and Agatha Johnson, for asking me to come today and be here. It means a lot to me to be able to do this for Noelle. I tried to think of all the things that she would probably do when she was up here, and I think the first thing she would have done would be to thank the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame for this honor, and she would have really been honored by it. She was a West Texas girl through and through, and she loved this part of the country and was always really proud to represent it, and I think this would have meant so much to her. She certainly would have congratulated all the other inductees. John Mark, I think she would have probably, in her, if I'm thinking about the way Noelle did things, she would talk a little bit about the Texas Tech flavor in this induction class today, and would have been really proud to have gone in with all of you guys. And oh my gosh, Joe, certainly you. Noelle had such incredible respect for you and what you did at Nazareth and Canyon both, and all the great things that you did. And can I just say on behalf of myself and Noelle that we thank you for all you've done for the game of basketball. There are so many people who have so much amazing respect for you, and definitely we were two of them, for sure. Noelle would have acknowledged some people who are important in her life and in her career. her parents who are here today, and I heard her say many times that they were the salt of the earth, and I totally agree that they are just great people. Her family, some of those guys are here today, Nick and Lisa, Leslie and Paul and their families, and other family members who were really important to her in her world. She would definitely have acknowledged Reagan Foster and everything Reagan did for her and all the care that she gave her. Chris Ray, who was her assistant coach at Midwestern and took over that program and this year, and she was so proud of everything he was about. All of her Midwestern family was really important to her. She had many friends, and as you can imagine, she had hundreds of fans that all would have been really excited for her today. I think a special group, her teammates and coaches that she was a part of for the years that she played, and for all you guys that Rayford just had stand a little bit ago, I do want to say something to you, because I think it became such a big deal this past year for a lot of us. Your teammates are people that you should be lifetime friends with. And I think you should take care of those relationships and know that they're going to be really important to you, and your coaches too, because I think at the end of the day it becomes a really special part of your world. Krista Kirkland-Gerlich is here today. As you know, she's the head coach at Texas Tech now. She was Noel's teammate at Texas Tech. She sent me a text this morning that said, "Our relationships, Coach, are built for days like this." And that's the truth. We have to have those people around us for days like this. And Noelle knew that, and she felt it every single day, I think, by the last year of her life, and it was a really important piece for her. And last, but certainly very close to her heart, she would have thanked all the young women who played for her at Midwestern. She loves you guys if you're watching online someplace, and she was so proud of who all of you are as people. I think the first time I remember seeing Noelle Johnson was when she was playing in a game at Nazareth, and I was, of course, recruiting for Tech. And even though I stayed for the whole game, I knew after the first quarter that I wanted her to be a part of our program. I immediately recognized traits that made her so special. Her no-nonsense demeanor on the court, her leadership abilities, her intelligence, and certainly her God-given talents were all really obvious to me. As I got to coach her for the next 4 years after we recruited her and signed her, I added a few other traits to that list. First of all, she was fiercely loyal, and I think that may be my very favorite trait of all. If you were one of Noelle's people, she had your back, and you never had to worry about what was going to happen if she was around. I thought it was always a really big part of who she was. She was highly competitive, and then she just had this glimpse of a mischievous sense of humor that really endeared everyone to her. It was just an amazing thing for me to be able to coach her. And then I watched her take all of those traits that I thought were so special to her, and they're the same qualities that made her a great coach. And maybe even more important than that, they were also the traits that were so obvious the last year that she lived. Noelle taught many of us many lessons during her battle with cancer, a lot more than I have time to talk to you about today. But I think some of the most valuable to me that I'll carry with me forever is, first of all, she taught me how to focus on people and things that are most important to you and don't get caught up in all the rest of it. I think she really understood that last year, that she didn't have time to mess with a lot of things that were unimportant. And it's such a great lesson for all of us every day. Second, she was always more concerned about others than she was about herself, even in her most difficult days. It wasn't a story that was exclusive to me, but every single time I saw her or talked to her on the phone, she asked me if I was doing okay. "Coach, are you okay? I just want to make sure you're okay with this." And at the end of that call or the end of that visit, not one time did she fail to tell me that she loved me. Can you imagine if we all lived our life like that every day and did those two things for people that were important in our world? I think there'd be a lot of better relationships and a lot of things that would be more important to us than maybe some of the things we focus on now. And the third thing is I think she was an amazing example about how to handle the most difficult adversity that anyone could handle with courage and dignity. What a gift. What an amazing gift that will be to me for the rest of my life. Noe, we miss you every day, but because we're believers, we're going to see you together again, and we'll be together again. And finally, today, on this very special occasion, we are so grateful, all of us in this room, to have the opportunity to say to you, job well done. Job well done. Rest in peace, special girl. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia, and congratulations to the Johnson family. You know, if you have a little bit of height, a little bit of athletic ability, and you love sports and grew up in Indiana in the 1960s, you played basketball. Joe Lombard had all of those growing up in Fort Wayne. Oh, he played baseball as a youngster, which was his dad's favorite sport, and he was pretty good at track, winning the city junior high championship in the 880, running on a state championship cross-country team in high school, running on a mile relay that set the Northwest Indiana record. But basketball was his sport. He was on the varsity for 2.5 years at Northside High School under legendary coach By Hay. In those days, and for the longest time, Indiana was renowned for having just one state champion, no matter the size of the school. In 1970, his junior year, the Redskins advanced to semi-state, which is one game before the 4-team state tournament. As a senior, Northside was eliminated in the regional round, but Joe received the basketball MVP from the high school, was honored as the top all-around athlete, made the all-city team at Fort Wayne. And a man named Bob Clendaniel was the head men's basketball coach at Wayland Baptist in Plainview, Texas. But he was also from Indiana. He recruited the state because of his contacts and because of all the talent there. Joe got a letter from him that said, "You're one of 500 that we're looking at. And then you're one of 250 we're looking at. Then you're one of 50 we're looking at." Finally, Joe said, if you'll just offer me a scholarship, I'll come. Well, they did, and he did, without taking a recruiting visit. Sight unseen, leap of faith. Joe was excited about this new adventure in Texas. For one thing, he thought he'd be near the Gulf of Mexico, in Plainview. Suffice to say, Texas geography was not a priority in the Indiana public school system. And after that 1,200-mile trip, he discovered a couple of things. Number one, there was 575 miles of beachfront property between Plainview and the Gulf. And he saw for the first time in his life, in person, women playing basketball. Who knew? And Joe soon discovered that the Pioneers were a second fiddle, usually a distant second fiddle, to the famous Flying Queens. For one, the Queens flew to their games. The Pioneers took the Blue Goose, half van, half bus, that often broke down on the road. You know, the Pioneers had their moments, and Joe logged plenty of playing time, especially the last 2 years, but mostly they lost. They were 14 and 49 in Joe's last 2 years. But roughly halfway through his time at Wayland, he became aware of Babs Tatum, newly crowned Miss Wayland. He got her number, and a promptu date of a Coke and sitting on some swings in a park led to their marriage in June 1975. Babs was going to coach. There was no doubt about that. She was a good basketball player at Winters, Texas. She coached the Queen Bees, the JV team. Been hired to coach at Hale Center, not too far away. Joe, he wanted nothing to do with coaching. He was sort of soured on basketball after his last 2 seasons at Wayland. He wanted to use his business degree and make some money. He landed a job with Cleveland Athletics out of Plainview. And for the next 2.5 years, he worked for Cleveland with an eye on part ownership. Most of his job was going to high schools across the South Plains and the Panhandle, filling equipment orders, fitting shoes for kids, just whatever needed. And over time, he realized how much he enjoyed the relationships with coaches, talking with kids, how comfortable he felt in the schools. He helped Babs with her team when he could, and he noticed how fulfilled she felt in her job. Long hours, but very fulfilling. And it was a whisper at first, driving down Panhandle roads, West Texas roads. It was a whisper, but that voice grew louder and louder. And the more he prayed about it, the more he was convinced that he was being led to coach. In the summer of 1978, he took another leap of faith, leaving the security of a business for the uncertainty of coaching in a small town. Man, what a coaching career. 2 state titles at Nazareth, 5 more at Canyon, at one point winning 55 meets in a row. You can make a case that Joe Lombard is the greatest cross-country coach in the history of this area. But I didn't know this until research for these ceremonies. Did you know he coached another sport? And he was pretty good at it, too. I don't know what it says when 7 state championships in another sport is an almost, oh, by the way, almost forgotten. But what it says is it gets almost lost in the shadows of one of the most remarkable coaching careers in the history of high school athletics. Should have seen this coming in his first year when he was coaching the Nazareth girls. Babs coached the Hale Center girls. And they played each other in the Crest tournament. Joe won 33-32. When he got home late that night, it was kind of unusual. The door was locked. And there was a doghouse out front with a sign that said, "Happy sleeping, Joe." It's courtesy of the Hale Center school board president. At least there was no pillow or blanket on the couch, but Babs did wonder, was it really necessary to go to that delay game at the end? That first year, with both Babs and Joe winning state titles, and both were mentioned in Sports Illustrated, well, that was just the beginning. You know, don't be fooled by what you see up here. Actually, a very small percentage of coaches ever win a state championship. To win 2 or 3 is amazing. To win 3 or 4 is unbelievable. To win 19 is just selfish, I guess. I don't really have the word for it. You may know the numbers or close to the numbers at Nazareth and Canyon that will stand the test of time. 42 years, a 1,379 and 133 record. That's 92% winning percentage over 42 seasons. Those 19 state titles, 26 if you count cross country, a national championship in 2003. He won 6 state titles at Nazareth, 13 at Canyon. He won state titles in 5 decades. 4 teams were undefeated. He won 4 state titles in a row, not once, but twice. In 1984 and 85, when the Nazareth girls were unbeaten, won 68 in a row, he also coached the boys to back-to-back appearances in the state championship game. And what's really kind of scary, is that 18 times his teams lost to the eventual state champion by 4 points or less. So just imagine if the ball would have rolled a little bit differently. This is his 7th Hall of Fame, including the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in 2016. You know, Joe took good situations and he made them great, made them dominant. He has an insatiable appetite for learning. He never once thought he knew even close to it all. He was highly organized, dedicated to the details, and prepared for any situation that would come up. He was an expert communicator, an extremely hard worker. He was demanding of himself and of his teams, but he was not a tyrant. His teams fed off his own poise and confidence. The secret to success is maybe no secret at all. It was like every year for 42 seasons, which ended in 2020, his teams were, in a way, like a wet rag, and he could just wring the talent out of every one of them in a way the high school game has never seen. And he did it with the humbleness of a servant leader, just answering the call and doing the best he could. In this past season, he was the most overqualified volunteer coach in the history of basketball, helping his son Tate win another state title at Canyon. So how do you summarize a career like this? How do you get your arms around all of the numbers, put it in perspective? The 19 state titles, the 1,379 wins, the 7 Hall of Fames, the 3-time National Coach of the Year awards. There's a Canyon gymnasium that bears his name, on and on. Most would say it's impossible. It can't be done. Too many moving parts. But I disagree. I think it can. In fact, I know it can. And it goes a little something like this. He's the best high school girls basketball coach there ever was and ever will be. The 192nd member of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame, from Nazareth, from Canyon by way of Fort Wayne, Indiana, Mr. Joe Lombard.
I needed John Mark back when I was negotiating for a contract that maybe I could have got a couple extra days or something, my job. But thank you so much, Kids Inc. and Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame Committee. Unbelievable honor. And hey, by the way, John Mark said we can stay till 6 or 6:30. So, are y'all ready? No, I promise you. About 3 minutes, okay? And it'll be time to go. But just thank you so much. What a great honor for our family, the Lombard family, the communities of Nazareth and Canyon, where I had the good fortune to get to work. I know I've been to at least 20 of these Hall of Fame ceremony things. Maybe it's 30. I'm not sure. I lost count. But I was hoping someday I might eventually get this honor. And all I had to do is grow old in age and to win a few games, and I was able to snag it and get in. So, again, very grateful. I'm humbled to be inducted with this amazing group of people right here. It's been fun getting to know them. And, if I'd known Noel and Nick was coming to Naz, I might have stayed there and just kept that as one-place career because she was special. Congrats to all the coaches and athletes here. It's so fun to see what can happen with hard work and talent. And so let me start just say that God's blessed me with many people that have made a huge impact in my life early on and then later on. Many of these people gave me a direction, and then they also gave me an opportunity. Starting with my parents, it was Joe and Dorothy Lombard, Big Joe and Dorothy back in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They raised 3 of us. The love of sports started with them. They love sports. I tell this story, one of my greatest things as a kid is getting to play catch with my dad. Play catch with your old man. That's something I still just really cherish. And of course, playing enough where he finally could kind of throw it hard enough to hurt his hand, burn his hand, and my mother took us to, it must have been 1 million workouts. I don't know. She drove us all over the city to play different sports. My brother's 4 years older, so he let me tag along and play with his group, his friends, and some maybe saw something in me. My younger sister was 5 years younger, and she'd go out and rebound for me in the driveway and probably became the best athlete in our family. So growing up as a small child and then maybe later as a teenager, I would dream all the time. Of course, I'd dream in the classroom, which hurt my grade point average, but I was always dreaming about being an athlete, and of course, never dreaming about being a coach. I mean, I wanted to be a player, and I was really probably a pretty average player, pretty average athlete, but I loved competing in everything I had that opportunity to compete in. And through the years, and as a young person, really grateful to the many coaches and teachers and friends that you have early in life. And so as I look back, a lot of gratitude there. So much fun. Well, the next opportunity after being through those early years was going to Wayland and getting offered that college basketball scholarship. My negotiating skills started to weigh in there, and I got to play on a really average and below average team. John Mark, too much research. We were really not very good. But along the way, I've met a lot of great people and had a lot of impact on me. And so I was so grateful all those people in those college years. When graduation from college came near, I had a lot of people ask me, "Hey, Joe, you going to coach?" I said, "Coach?" I said, "Heck no." I said, "There's no way I'm going to coach. I'm going to go into business. I want to be a businessman, make a ton of money, and do that thing." And lo and behold, I think the good Lord has a sense of humor, and thankfully there was another plan that he had in mind for me that I didn't even realize until later on. And of course, as Wayland, I fell in love with Miss Wayland. What a great catch that was for me, wife Babs, and we were blessed with two amazing children, Lindy and Tate. Lindy might have been a better coach than me and Tate. Their spouses, Scott and Paige, great spouses. They hit home runs with who they married. Our grandchildren, Owen, Miles, Archer, Jones, and we got one on the way. So that's one reason why I wanted to retire, so I could kind of be a part of that. And we're so proud of our kids and look forward to those many adventures we have in retirement. But let me not get too far ahead. I was 2 years out of college, and I received a call from Nazareth. And you know, I see my old high school principal right there. Maybe it was Jim Pegram. He was my first principal, and he was kind of Mr. Nazareth. He was there forever. But they asked me if I'd be interested in coaching girls basketball. Just like John Mark said, I never even saw a girls game until I got to Wayland. And of course, got to watch Babs and her teams. And so I thought, what an opportunity to go coach at Nazareth. That must be a higher calling or something. Maybe it wasn't Jim Pegram, but I accepted, and we won a state title that very first year. And I know Sharon, Gerber, I know that they carried me. It wasn't me helping them much. And let me tell you, I was so excited, you guys, you coaches, players. I was so excited. I had one of the Nazareth people give me a bottle of champagne to go celebrate. So, hey, I was young. The brain was not fully developed yet. We went back to the hotel, and all the girls, we got out those hotel cups, and I divvied up that champagne, and we had a great evening together celebrating that win. Well, thankfully, my superintendent there, Johnny Mason, didn't fire me on the spot, but I was called in on the carpet. That was the only time I was ever called in. That Monday we got back, said, "Hey, Joe, you're in Nazareth. You can probably do a lot of things, but that one might have crossed the line a little bit." But I had 7 remarkable, unbelievable years in Naz. So many awesome players and great administrators, great teachers, unbelievable friends, assistant coaches. And you know what? I thought we could beat the Celtics. We were so good. I mean, we were really good, and had a lot of talent. There's a lot of tradition, and so what a remarkable 7 years. Grateful. But you know what? Here comes another opportunity. And so the thing at Canyon, and the reason I left, and I tell this to a lot of people, not that we won everything, but I just needed a little more of a challenge, and so I found it in Canyon, Texas. And so 35 years as a head coach, 1 year helping Tate this past year, so that makes 36. But thanks to the administrators, I've got Toby Tucker back there. He's one of my ADs, and guys like him that I got to work with, Johnny Hampton, Kerry Moss, a couple coaches that, of course, I coached with Johnny forever. When you get to work with quality people, it just makes going to work every day, Sharon, is fun. I mean, it's just fun to go work with your peers, and so it was a lot of fun. That community was awesome. Canyon is where I tell people that's where I really learned how to coach, because we had to learn how to, we lost. I mean, we didn't lose a lot, but we lost. And we had John Mark research. I mean, we had a lot of frustrating losses. And so I really felt like I got better, we all got better from failure, from losing, and having some heartbreaking losses in those years. But you know, the secret to success, Marcia, it's the players. I mean, it's the players. I didn't have that high of intelligence thing. My IQ was not that high, but it was the players. It was their dedication. They would buy in every year. They would buy in 100% to what we're trying to do. It was workout after workout. Team play, playing as a team, Rayford, even though you scored the last 11 points, is playing as a team, knowing what you're capable of doing. Mastering the fundamentals, the high standards, and of course that kind of stuff led to wins and championships. I will admit I love planning practice, and I love working to improve in every practice. And I went back, I tried to figure out how many workouts I was at in 42 years when I coached 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade, helped with JV and varsity. Of course, coached cross country for 17 or 18 years and coached boys basketball for 2. Well, that was over 36,000 practices. And I can't remember any of them I did not like. I liked everyone. I mean, I was just a nerd, I guess. I was just a coaching nerd. And I just loved it. I just loved going to the gym, loved going to the school, loving to work with young people. I just loved it. And then on top of that, summers were filled with camps. I coached in more than 200 camps in the summers. And so, and I liked that. I liked to learn. I liked to drag Lindy and Tate along so they could be a part of camp. And so when I think of, you know, the secret was the players, I think we all have some type of gift that the Lord gives us. I think part of mine, or something of mine, was He gave me a gift. He gave me a passion for excellence, and He gave me a passion for being a lifetime learner. And many of you are maybe that same type of gift, but I just still like learning. And I don't like learning just school stuff. Babs had to tutor me on how to diagram a sentence and write a research paper, but I love the current things of what they're doing in basketball, and I love what leaders say about how to lead other people. I like learning those type of things. And so I'm grateful. For 42 years, it was like a high. I mean, it was never a job. I just couldn't wait to get to school. And so those opportunities the good Lord gave me, and those people I met along the way were awesome. Okay, my advice for young people, and you know what, maybe for old people. And these are kind of things you learn along the way, but Jesus is first, family is second, and your career is third. And I don't know if I really had it that way in that order early on, but if you mess up these priorities, you're going to be missing out on unbelievable joy and blessings that you get in your daily life. And so the Panhandle of Texas became my home. I never, ever considered returning to Indiana, and the reason was just the people. It was you, the people I worked with day in and day out. There was sports writers like John Mark and Lance and all those guys, and just the many people I come in contact all the time with. The people of the Panhandle, they care about one another, and yes, they like their sports too. So once again, Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame, Kids Inc., it's one of the greatest honors I'll ever, and I will forever cherish this award. Thank you very much.
Well, I know y'all have been applauding for more than 2.5 hours, but I hope you have one more left in you to acknowledge this star-powered 2021 class into the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. Congratulations. Okay, before we move on to the second half of the program, right now you're looking in your program going, wait a second. Before we close, one announcement, a couple of quick thank yous. First of all, there's a book available in the back, History of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. It's actually a walking history of sports in the Panhandle. Dave Wolfarth and Mike Haynes have put together. If you're interested, it is available there to purchase. And a couple of thank yous. First of all, these ceremonies wouldn't be close to what they are today if not for the work of Stacy Knight and Kiva Bell of Kids Inc. You know, we'd probably be in a parking lot somewhere handing out plaques out of the back of a truck if not for them. They have done an incredible amount of work and heavy lifting to make this possible. And they have a day job too, so a salute to them. Thank you to the Hall of Fame sponsors, which you can see on your program. Their financial assistance and understanding of the role of sports in the Panhandle makes these ceremonies possible. There's a donation envelope there that you can use if you're so inclined, and if it helps you make a decision, none of that goes to pay the MC, who is paid what he deserves. And finally, thank you to you. Your presence is our present. I know it's long, but we appreciate it. It's a present to the Hall of Fame, to those recognized, or maybe it's yourself who's recognized. Everyone has a role, and it all combines to make sports in the Panhandle what it is. Now, Jack Knight with the Hall of Fame Committee will voice our benediction, and on its conclusion, you are dismissed. Thank you very much.
Well, what a day of sharing and learning. That's what I say. Okay, if you would please rise, and we'll have our closing prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for your presence at this annual Sports Awards ceremony today as we recognize the best of the best. And may this special time be a reminder to each of us that, you know, excellence in life takes time and it takes effort, sometimes going alone, but always going the second mile. Lord, we ask that you would bless the families here, the friends and coaches and other team members who've supported those whom we have honored. Always keeping in mind we are not the sole contributors to our successes. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to reach and press towards those things that make a difference in our lives and others' lives. We ask for your protection for our troops here at home and abroad, the leaders of our city, leaders of our nation, and watch over and protect each of us as we travel to our homes. It's in Jesus' name we give you all the glory. Amen.